across the UK, online and on DAB.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
This is Talk Radio. We are the Two Mics, and it seems a little bit ridiculous to say good morning to Mike Parry since I've been seeing him for about the last 5 hours.
Exactly.
But a very good morning to you nonetheless.
Yeah, and very good morning to you, Mike.
Welcome to the studios.
Welcome, and of course the day's halfway over already, but it's only 10 a.m.
That's right. That's what happens when you get up at 4 o'clock.
That's right, yeah, absolutely.
But we had a very nice time over at Sky.
Thank you to Sky again. Thank you to Claudia and Jonathan, who were the co-presenters of the show that we starred upon. That sounds a bit
well, I think that's probably
in
very
which we featured.
Yeah, but briefly.
This morning, that's right. And now we get stuck into all the stories that matter. And the one that I particularly like is the one that you've highlighted there in your opener. These guys, these very brave men, these resilient adventurers who are trying to row in the most treacherous waters in the world, the Polar Row Expedition.
Yeah.
And we're hoping to get hold of Alex Gregory, although it is a technical miracle if we make it, because we've got to bounce it off satellites and all sorts of
phones,
things.
all sorts of stuff, yeah.
But if we can get hold of Alex, he's going to tell us exactly what a hazardous journey they've been making and what happens next.
Yes, indeed. Well, one of the reasons that there was such a great thing that they were going to do was that they were raising money to build a school in the Himalayas.
That's right.
But they both decided, well, not just Alex, but several of the guys have decided that actually the 1,200-mile trip is very, very much more dangerous than they thought it was going to be.
Yes.
And, actually they've got a duty to their families
of course
not to die, not to perish, albeit it's a very, very worthy cause.
That's right.
Doing something like that. And I think it's actually quite an honest point of view, because we've often said in the past that people who do these kinds of adventures sometimes are driven by a sort of what they need to have is a kind of selfishness about themselves, right? They need to be able to just blot everything else out of their mind and be single-minded about making the trek work.
Yes, absolutely.
And if you don't have that kind of selfish sort of gene in your body, then you wonder why you're doing it.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, this is uncharted territory for men with just a rowing boat.
Yes.
There was no sail on the boat. There was no engine on the boat.
Right.
So it wasn't as if they could get themselves out of trouble by starting up the two-stroke engine and popping away.
I think that's part of the thing. You can't really have an engine on a rowing boat if you want to try and break some kind of record.
Exactly. They set out from Tromsø, which is already above the Arctic Circle.
That's the big oil terminal there, isn't it?
It is, yes, you're absolutely right. They've gone up to Svalbard.
Have they?
And then they double back past Greenland, but they have found themselves now stranded on J. Mayen Island since August the 19th. And, of course, when you're in those sort of conditions and you're facing horrendous odds, I'm afraid you've got to be realistic about where the trip's going.
Well, indeed.
Yeah.
And if you have children, you have a responsibility to those children. You have to say, again, if you're not going to be very selfish about it, that you go on something like that and you come back alive.
Yeah, you do, yeah.
Yeah. It's like that quote from Sean Connery in The Untouchables.
Yes.
When he meets Kevin Costner on the bridge.
Right.
And he's the copper, and he watches him throw a piece of paper into the river.
Right.
And they have an exchange.
The guy's a litterbug, is he?
Yeah, but he works out that the guy works for the Treasury Department. And he says, "Did you have a good day?" He said, "No, I had a terrible day." And he said, "Yeah, but you've just fulfilled the first rule of policing. By the time your shift ends, make sure you go home alive."
Yeah.
And in a way, that's what these guys are doing.
Yeah,
by the time you've finished your rowing expedition.
Your adventure.
What do you mean you suppose so? What, you don't like the analogy?
What?
Well, I've just told you.
Well, I think it's far more dangerous being a policeman in Chicago in the 1930s, at the height of the Al Capone era, gangland warfare.
Incorporated.
Than it is to be a rower in a boat in the Arctic Circle if there's not a hole in it.
I disagree, because clearly Alex will disagree with you as well, because he thinks it's dangerous enough that his life is actually in peril.
Yes.
So that's why he's decided not to carry on.
Yes. Well, I had so much admiration for these guys. It's something I couldn't possibly do. I mean, you've never done anything challenging physically, have you?
I have, actually.
What? I mean...
Well, what would you regard as challenging physically? Well, walking the Great North Run, was he call that challenging?
I would say entering the Great North Run with a very fragile heart is something which only a certain character of person would
you have
do.
to go on Sky TV and go bleating on about only 1/3 of my heart works. You forget to mention that, first of all, the doctors have actually said it's 49% now, more recently, and you seem to have miraculously recovered from what was apparently a fatal heart condition.
Well,
you're the only person in the history of the world that's ever recovered and taken yourself off the heart transplant list.
If that were true, it'd be because of the hard work I've put into my recovery.
You haven't put any hard work in.
And mind over matter will always triumph.
The only hard work you put in is raising your arm in the bloody pub every
that's
afternoon.
very nice, isn't it? Yeah.
That's all you do.
That's all. You only say that to try and put me at a sort with my consultants.
That's not true.
I've done so much to
That's
keep me
not
going.
true.
You know.
Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jan Mayen, right? Which is the island in which we're going to find.
Yes.
Hopefully, we're going to find Alex Gregory, right?
Yes.
It's a Norwegian volcanic island, 55 kilometres long. And something like 144 square miles in area, covered by glaciers and around the Beerenberg volcano. So there's not much going on there.
There's not much going on there unless the volcano suddenly erupts into action.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
I know. It's
not the sort of place you'd buy, is it? Not like Necker, you know, my pal Richard Branson's island or anything like that.
No, indeed. It's the only inhabitants on the island are personnel working for the Norwegian Armed Forces.
Wow. So it's a sort of secret base.
And the Norwegian Meteorological Institute.
Yeah, well, that'd be for weather forecasts.
Do you know how many people spend winter on the island?
12?
18.
18? Well, that wasn't bad, was it? Yeah.
Sometimes the population will double during the summer months to 35.
And who are the other 17 who arrive?
Well, I guess they would be people who are military personnel and or meteorological people measuring the weather. But it's one of those, what you might call sort of rocky outcrops in the North Atlantic.
Sounds extremely bleak.
Where nothing much happens.
No,
I mean, it's the kind of place, if you had to spend a winter there, you might go mad.
Well, you'd have to take plenty of supplies of the Alpino, wouldn't you, to keep your comfort?
I think it'd be more like brandy, I think, in those conditions.
It would,
It would be. Now, if we are lucky enough to manage to get through to Alex Gregory, we will be speaking to him very, very shortly. It will be incredibly difficult and arduous to get the satellite signal up and running, but that's what we're going to attempt to do. And if you've got a nice message that you wish to pass on to him, by all means do so by tweeting us at the Two Mics, or of course you can tweet us at talkRADIO. Don't forget, we're going to do Heroes and Villains coming up a little bit later on. One of these guys might figure in that. And also, we'll be bringing you up to date on the latest on that chemical incident in East Sussex, which I was very nearly caught up in yesterday on the count of being in East Sussex.
Well, perhaps that's why the makeup artist at Sky worked so hard in your face this morning.
I don't know why you got on about that, as if you look like Johnny Depp or something.
Well, no, but I mean, she did say it was a struggle.
Well,
she had volume of flesh on your face, she commented on.
You should have heard what she said about you.
What?
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
This is Talk Radio. We are the Two Mics. We've got loads going on, and including everything else that's happening. We're just trying to get a hold of Alex Gregory right now, as he is on a very, very remote island that we were explaining to you off the coast of Norway, which only has 18 people on it, generally speaking, throughout the course of the year. Sometimes the population swells to something like 35, but it's basically operated only by military people and people from the meteorological business. Now, quite a few people have commented on the little video that's just gone out on the Talk Radio Twitter account. Which is you and I sort of hot-footing it here from Sky, jumping out of a cab just outside the
it was actually a Toyota Prius. It was one of those electric car type things.
It's a hybrid, isn't it?
Hybrid.
Did you enjoy driving in that?
Well, it was all right, It got us here swiftly, so that was a good thing. Now, on any other day, we'd have had to have resorted to the motorbike taxis.
Yes, indeed. We've had to do that before.
We have, because, of course, of the volume of traffic coming in from West London at that time of the day. However, because it's a bank holiday, and this is our second job of the bank holiday Monday, which I'm delighted to say.
Well, it's our last job, actually.
It's our last job as well, it could be.
Unless you've got something else to go to.
Well, I may have things to do this afternoon, you never know.
Oh, really?
And
does that mean you're not going to the pub, then?
Sorry?
You're not going to the pub this afternoon?
Well, I may have to take an interlude.
Really?
But, it would be one of moderation. Of course,
I see, of course. No question.
No, but on this, you know what happens with these people on these islands that you've been talking about, the 18 people? You know they have to undergo the same sort of training that astronauts on missions to Mars have to undertake because of the isolation, loneliness.
Astronauts don't go on missions to Mars.
Well, they practice for it in at NASA, you know.
Are you sure?
Yes, definitely.
Right, okay.
And they, they have to deal with the isolation, the loneliness, but more than anything, like a stimulation to the brain.
Well, they just send you.
What a ridiculous comment.
Well, because you don't need to have your brain stimulated.
You're not a bit tired, from the early start.
No, absolutely fine. But, I mean, you're used to, hours and hours of loneliness because, that's how you live. You're also used to
I'm
not having
lonely.
much...
I never feel lonely.
Well, you don't. Well, that's what I mean. You don't need to worry about it. You don't need to be trained. You could be in a place without anybody else, without having any problems whatsoever.
Who sung that song? He's the loneliest man in the world.
I don't know.
Was it Lulu?
I have no idea.
Was that a David Bowie song?
I don't know.
Covered by Lulu, I think it was.
Well, he did The Man Who Sold the World.
The Man Who Sold the World.
She covered that. But I don't recognise that line.
Okay.
A couple of people have tweeted anyway, having seen the video of us getting out of the car. And Julian says this rather unkindly. Yeah. Butter must have been used to get that pair in the back of a medium-sized car.
Oh, that's very nice, isn't it?
Very harsh, isn't it?
In fact, you went there in an S-Class Mercedes, didn't you?
Well, I was very delighted, about that. Because the thing is, the cab company that they use, you're never quite sure precisely what car you're going to get.
No.
Last time, they said to me when I was coming back to work.
Yes.
Or in fact, no, not coming back to work. I was coming back into London.
Yes.
That they'd sort of upgraded me for no particular reason. Yeah. And I was in a Tesla.
Excellent.
Which was brilliant. I showed you the Tesla showroom as we came back in at Chiswick.
That's right, yeah, you did. Yeah, that used to be a Porsche showroom.
It did, yeah.
Now, Andy, very kindly, says, in a communication here to Talk Radio, my little daughter made the comparison over the weekend whilst watching the Muppets. She says that the two mics are just like, what are those two guys called?
Yeah, those Stadler and whatever his name is.
Stadler and whatever, yeah.
Waldorf and Stadler, is it?
Waldorf and Stadler or something like that. And I have to say that, we're nothing like them.
No, indeed. Dom is asking for a shout-out for his girlfriend. He says he needs the brownie points. He says, any chance of a tweet for my girlfriend? It's her birthday today. Well, we'll send you a tweet, but her name's Heather. Yeah. Apparently it's her birthday.
And how old is she? Do we know?
He doesn't say.
OK, well, listen, doesn't matter what age is, beauty is what it's all about, Heather, and that's in the eye of the beholder, and that's certainly your boyfriend. Very happy birthday, and have a great life.
Indeed.
That's all I can say.
Now, we also had a note, did we not, earlier on in the journey from West London over to here?
Yes.
Of a couple who were getting married today.
Yes.
In the Forest of Dean.
Yes, we did, indeed.
Do you remember that one?
I do. And I said to you, don't lose it, don't forget it, because we must pay tribute to people. If they're kind enough to advise us and let us know they get married today, then we'll try and enhance their best day by mentioning the big day for them that it is.
Yes.
Okay?
Well, should we not do that then?
Yeah, we should do that.
Well,
you find out, and I'll just read out this one. This comes from Tony. He says... crikey, Porky, that makeup lady at Sky had a real job on today, didn't she? I conclude she's a miracle worker.
Yes.
Right.
Now, I've got some good news for you. Talk about miracle workers. We have now managed to get hold of Alex Gregory on the satellite phone. He is over in Norway. We're going to find out now how he's feeling. Alex, a very good morning to you here in London.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Very well indeed, thanks. Great to hear from you. That's a nice, clear signal. And, Alex, we've just been telling people how much we admire this mission that you've taken on, and we'd like to hear from you firsthand now. How has it been going, and at what stage are you at?
Well, it's been one hell of an experience, I must say. It's been incredibly exciting. This is something that I've always wanted to do, and the group of us have come together to create this expedition that we've been embarking on, and it's been really successful so far. But right now we're on an island called Jan Mayen, which is about 300 miles north of Iceland. Iceland was originally our final destination. Yeah. But we've had to call into Jan Mayen, and so it looks like it's unlikely that we'll get to Iceland in the end. But as I say, it's been a successful expedition, and there's some memories that will stay with me and the rest of us for the rest of our lives. No question about it.
It sounds like an incredibly remote spot you're in, and we were reading about what goes on there, and it's largely a sort of a volcanic island occupied only by members of the military from Norway and maybe a few meteorological scientists of maybe no more than about 20, 25 people there at any one time. Is it the incredible cold that's got to you, or just the hardship? What is it?
Yeah, so the island is, you're absolutely right, it is incredible. It's a volcanic island, and there's 18 people stationed here at the moment, and those people, I would just want to say, are amazing and have been so good to us, and just welcoming us onto this island, which it doesn't normally happen. It's not usual for people to turn up in their own boat out here. Yeah. So that was pretty good of them. We've all got to say, we're trying not to get in their way. We're trying to let them get on with their daily work, of course, and trying to help out as much as we can while we're here. But we are a little bit isolated and a little bit stuck here. It's not easy to get to and get from. In terms of the journey and my take on it, it was rough. It was rough seas. No one's done this before. No one's done this route. And we were expecting, of course, an ocean row, which involves waves. It involves hardship and discomfort. The cold, it was cold. It was uncomfortable. We were cramped in the boat. But those are all things we knew would happen. Those are all absolutely fine, and those weren't the problems. The problem for me was the worry of an incident happening, just in case. These boats are designed, our boat is designed for oceans and for big waves, but with the cold conditions, I just felt like the risks were that little bit greater. And we were in swells and waves of 4 meters coming from all different directions. And the chance to stop was given to us. We took that chance to stop and reevaluate. And on reevaluation, I perceived the dangers of going back out into that too great for me and my position in my family.
Okay, so
my family back home.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, Alex, did you fear that if you had gone in the water, you would not have survived?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that is the case. I think that was my perception of it.
Yes,
and,
I see.
And it's cold water, and we could have gone out. We could have, but you're still then having to control the boat in rough conditions. There's many factors involved.
Sounds good.
I think on other oceans, if you go in, then it's okay. You get out and it's not so cold, but in these cold conditions, it's pretty extreme. The risks are greater, the risks are higher.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, but I wasn't prepared to do that again.
Nobody's going to blame you.
No.
Can we also point out you are a double Olympic gold rower, so it's not as if you went into this with little experience in tough rowing competitions, is it? Hi, Alex.
I think maybe
the line dropped.
I think the line may have dropped.
Satellite link might have
We'll try
gone.
and get him back, because one of the things I'm interested to find out about, if we can, is the sort of dynamic of a rowing team like that. Because a couple of the reports I've read, some of the other members of the rowing team are going to try and continue the journey.
Are they?
But
just two of them?
Well, no. In order to do that, they have to recruit somebody else to do it. Now, I don't know how possible that's going to be, or whether that is in fact what's going on. Because it sounded, from what Alex was saying, was that the kit and caboodle is no longer going to make it to Iceland.
The original report I read, I think, said that Alex and one other member of the crew decided they didn't want to complete the mission because of the dangers of falling into a very cold sea.
Sure.
So we'll have to try and.
But the dynamic there must then be difficult, because you're in a very small enclosed space with people. Even if you've landed and they're now sort of taking refuge on this volcanic island, they must be in very close proximity to the other members of the group.
Well, I don't think they've fallen out. I don't think anybody's fallen out with each other.
Do you not think that would happen, though?
No, I think they've made a conscious decision to say, look, we don't want to go any further. The other question I'd like to ask Alex, if he comes back, is he said it's very remote and very hard to get to.
Yeah.
How are they going to get off, the two
Well,
left behind?
again, I think there's a boat that they're expecting to sort of go past the island they're on in about a week's time.
I see.
So they'd have to wait there for about a week. I mean, I suppose if it was life and death, it was an emergency situation, then somebody from a military base would probably go and help them. I think we've got him back. Alex, are you back?
Hello, I'm back.
Great.
I'm sorry about
Great,
that.
not your
Brilliant.
fault.
Listen, Alex, I wanted to ask you, because I've read a couple of reports that suggest that maybe two of the members of your crew are going to try and carry on with the mission, but needing to have to recruit somebody else. Is that the case, or have you all agreed it's not going to happen?
No, that is the case, and as I said, this was all a perception of each of us as individuals. And two of the guys have rowed oceans before. They are more experienced in big water conditions, and they perceive the dangers differently. And so they wanted to carry on, and that was cool. That was this whole thing, this whole team, this whole project has been a dynamic thing with different people coming in at different times. Yeah. So it's not really a big deal that people are thinking that. So we all respect each other's decision, and we're all trying to make this work for everyone. So at the moment, 4 of us want to call it there, and then 2 want to continue, but they need new crew members. So. And that's fine. That's fine on anywhere else maybe in the world, but this island, it's not easy to get to, and not easy to get people on, and not even easy to get people off as well. And we also have to respect that is the case here, and we're not trying to, and we don't want to take advantage of anyone or any of the rules here. which we completely respect. So
Sure.
we're under other people's rules, and if that happens or if it doesn't happen, then that's okay.
Okay, Alex, when we just got cut off there, I was saying that you are, of course, a double Olympic gold medalist in rowing, so you're not unused to challenges. But would it be right to say this is more a brutal strength type mission rather than the skill and the expertise that you exercise on a very calm lake when you're winning gold medals for rowing?
Yeah, do you know, it's so funny. I used to complain about waves 4 inches high,
right.
4 meters high.
Yeah.
It's a completely different sport. I spent the last 17 years every day in a boat on water.
Yeah.
But like you say, it's flat water, racing at speed, trying to get as fast from A to B as possible. And the training and everything is much more precise, and you know what you're doing, and you have the history of that sport behind you. Whereas we were doing something new, something completely different, which you can't really prepare for. We couldn't prepare for those conditions out there with all the aspects, all the parts that were involved. So yeah, it's a totally different sport, really. And although I knew my way around an oar, you still have.
Now I don't know whether
satellite
that means
link's gone again.
It may well have done. Are you still there, Alex?
No, I think we can only hear a distant echo.
Yeah, we
hope we haven't been taken by an ice floe or a polar bear.
No, I hope not. No, certainly not a polar bear. I don't think there's any of those on this particular island.
Well, you never know.
It says there's only 18 people, no bears. Because I did want to ask him about his relationship with his children, because one of the reasons that he cites as wanting to come back is that he missed his daughter's birthday, her 4th birthday, and he already missed her birth. So I can understand why you would feel,
absolutely.
Unfortunately, I mean, people give sports stars quite a hard time occasionally. Say, for example, cricketers in the past who've come back from a tour of India because their first child was born. Right. You know, I mean, I have great sympathy with people who want to do that. I know you don't, but we can talk about that some more.
I'm not unsympathetic.
You have been in the past.
I only ever cite Michael Schumacher.
Isn't that why Lee Westwood chased you around a golf course?
Yes, it was. Yeah,
because you've been critical of him.
He deferred a visit to the Masters because one of his children was being born. That's right.
And you gave him a hard time.
I didn't give him a hard time.
Well, why was he chasing you around a golf course with a golf club?
He was rather upset at the insinuation that I said he'd bottled it.
Indeed. I think so. Anyway, I think Alex is gone for the moment. We'll see if we can get him back, but if we can't, fascinating conversation.
Indeed.
If anybody happens to be passing the Jan Mayen Island, if you're currently listening on a boat in the North Sea, by all means go and rescue him.
You have to be a bit further north than the North Sea, actually. It's the Arctic Ocean.
I thought it was the North Atlantic, actually.
No, it's the Arctic Ocean.
Is it the Arctic Ocean? Okay, well, we'll give you better directions coming up a little bit later on. Porky's directions, of course, famous. You will never go wrong.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
This is Talk Radio. We are the Two Mics. Fascinating talking to Alex Gregory there.
Certainly was,
unkindly, somebody has tweeted, I think it's Minor, saying, how can he call it the trip a success? He failed because he had to get the Norwegian military to save them. Yeah. I don't think you can understand what it's like to be on one of those types of missions.
This guy's not a failure. This man's a hero.
Well, he is. I mean, maybe
and a very successful man. He's got. Remember, he had 2 Olympic gold medals before he got into the boat to row around the Arctic Ocean.
Exactly right. Yeah. And, sometimes when conditions are so bad that you have to stop, that's because you have to save life and limb. And it's very churlish to actually have a go and say that somehow that makes him a failure. Absolutely ridiculous. Now, yesterday afternoon there was a bit of drama down on the south coast.
And you happened to be on the south coast,
not a million miles away from where I was.
Yeah.
In East Sussex, in fact, just around the corner from Beachy Head. A bizarre gas cloud appeared and nobody really knew where it came from. It seemed to come in from the sea. It affected over 100 people. Maybe about 150 people were taken to hospital, treated pretty much as the walking wounded, just with streaming eyes and sore throats and all of that. But we are going to talk now to our guest who is down there in Sussex, because Michael Drummond is a reporter for the Eastbourne Herald. We're told that the warnings to keep your windows closed have now ceased and the gas appears to have disappeared. Let's talk to Michael now. Michael, a very good morning to you.
Hi guys, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, not at all. Thanks for coming on. Now, I was down in East Sussex yesterday and nobody seemed to really have a clue as to where this came from and how dangerous it might be. And I know there were sort of initial fears that it might have been some kind of terror-related incident, but Is anybody any the wiser about what happened?
I mean, it did start off with a lot of people not knowing quite what was going on. I guess as the evening went on and the night began, some or more information became to light. So, it was quickly established that it wasn't hugely dangerous. People were going in with some breathing problems and irritation to the eyes and throats, but it was, it wasn't something that was going to be life-threatening. But they were advising people to, wash their eyes out with lots of water and go into hospital. But throughout then, they still didn't know where it came from. They were reasonably sure that it came in off the sea, but other than that, they weren't sure. Well, that does seem to be the case this morning as well.
Yeah, but I mean, surely there must be an investigation going on underway, Michael, because as you say, it probably came in from the sea, but you don't want it to happen again, because although nobody's died, it's a very unpleasant experience. So how is the ongoing investigation proceeding?
Well, I think it is still ongoing today. I think they seem to have established that it's unlikely that it came from northern France, but again, that's still still quite vague. I think they say it's unlikely to recur, so they're saying it's fine to go outside.
I mean, could the Russians have anything to do with it?
The Russians?
Yeah.
What's it got to do with them?
Well, because the Russians are a very mysterious nation, and if they were testing, they often drive their clapped-out, dilapidated old aircraft carrier through the English channels. Yeah. I'm sure you've been aware, Michael. I mean, do you think they might be getting up to mischief?
I mean, I haven't had any tips or anything from police that the Russians are involved.
Yeah, okay, but I mean, what about your own
instincts?
That
story then?
No. Well, it's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah, but the point is that any number of strange things can wash up in the English Channel, as you know very well, Michael. I'm sure it's the busiest shipping channel in the world. I mean, is there I mean, people must be sort of coming up with theories. Is it possible that it was maybe a barrel full of some kind of toxic substance that started leaking?
I mean, I don't think there's been anything that's that specific at the moment. I think once they figure out what exactly it is, it will be easier for them to just discover how it got here.
Yeah, right.
The one problem with this, Michael, is that it's very difficult, A, to predict it's going to happen, and B, to protect yourself against it, unless you're wearing, a fully sort of biochemical white suit on the beach while you're sunbathing.
Well, they were wearing those when they were clearing it up, apparently.
Yeah, but you're very vulnerable to this sort of thing, aren't you?
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, the very nature of the coast is exposed, so I think people will wait with bated breath to see what it actually is and what we have from police later today, hopefully.
Right. I mean, we're now being told that the advice for people in that part of the world is that you can open your windows again.
That's right.
I mean, a few hours ago, was it still visible, this cloud? Because, I mean, it was very visible on a piece of video footage I saw yesterday afternoon as it kind of wafted in from the sea. But, I mean, could you still see it?
Well, as you say, you're very right. I think the last report they had was sort of mid-evening yesterday. Yeah. So our first report came in about 5 p.m, and that was at Berlin Gap, and then slowly it sort of went along the coast. So I think the furthest we heard it was at Pevensey Bay.
Right.
So that's a good distance from where it first landed. But I think now it seems to have all dissipated
and gone away. And
funny enough, Johnny Gould was on. He's got a place down in Sovereign Harbour.
Oh yes,
which is not a million miles away from between Pevensey Bay and Eastbourne. Yeah. And he was on because he smelt it where he was.
Oh really? Okay. Yeah, Michael. What I was going to say is it hasn't been the greatest of summers for coastal resorts, has it? For seaside traders, and this is the last thing they needed, wasn't it? Some mysterious cloud suddenly swinging in over the horizon.
Well, it certainly wasn't the ideal weather for the bank holiday, was it? We had a lovely sunny day, and then this happened.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And then it puts a damper on it. And, of course, people's suspicions are it might happen again. So the traders down there must be quite unhappy about things.
I imagine so. I mean, as I said, I think police are saying that it is safe to go down to the beaches today, but I can understand people being a little bit wary.
Well, until they find out why or where or whatever. I mean, how do we know it's not a couple of canisters which are rocking around inside a cave, 2 miles down the coast or something like that, and they, these vapours are only emerging at low tide or high tide or something like that?
I mean, I don't know. I think we just have to wait for what police say. I think they're the ones investigating what it is.
Yes.
Exactly.
So are the police actually running this, or is it being run by kind of environmental people?
I think the investigation itself is being run by police in conjunction with other agencies.
Right. Yeah. Because, I mean, the police are pretty well stretched as well. I mean, I'm not sure they can put too much resources behind something like this because, in a way, unfortunately, in the world in which we now live, things happen so quickly, news comes and goes. In a couple of days, they might have all forgotten about it. We might never find out, Michael, what happened.
Well, I mean, I hope the opposite is true. I hope we do get to the bottom of this because, as you say, I think we want to know that it's not going to happen again. As I say, as they've said today, they don't believe it will happen again. Which I guess means that they may have some idea what it is, and hopefully they will give us some more information later today.
Interesting. Indeed. Michael, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. Michael Drummond, there, reporter for the Eastbourne Herald. I mean, I would be not surprised at all in this day and age if we never find out what happened.
Well, exactly. Sometimes people complain about a noise.
Yeah.
and they spend years trying to find out what the noise is. And the theories range from electricity pylon cables to wind turbines to explosions, UFOs, crazy animals copulating in woods nearby,
and
all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And you never get to the bottom of it. And so it could be that. Have you ever been to Eastbourne, by the way?
Of course, I've been to Eastbourne.
Right.
I go there all the time. I live just up the road from it.
Oh yeah, well I didn't know you went down to Eastbourne all the time.
Well, it's not very far away.
No, is it
It's about a 20-minute drive.
Is it a sedate and rather what you would call unexciting town?
Well, actually, I wouldn't call it unexciting. It's got a very exciting pier. You know, and it's one of the few piers.
Well, what happens on this exciting pier?
Well, it depends who you go there with.
Well, how can a pier be exciting?
Well, it's got all sorts of things on it.
Well, a bit of bingo.
Yeah, it's got like some amusements. It's
few
got
fruit machines.
Well, it's been done up recently as well by a local businessman.
Yeah, that sounds like the most unexciting thing I could do today.
Oh, really?
Oh, I know. When we finish the show, man, let's get down to Eastbourne and go to the pier.
You don't like piers?
Well, I do
thought
like
you
piers,
liked
but I
all
don't
sorts
find
of-
them exciting. I find them
Really?
architecturally, aesthetically pleasing.
Really? You don't like to walk out to the end of a pier?
Yes.
Stand above the raging waters below you.
Watch the fishermen.
And watch the
bring their
fishermen
fish.
and actually admire the
I
stunning
quite
vista.
like that, but I mean, it's
Well, that's
not...
quite a nice thing to do.
Yeah, but I mean, for you, so
I mean,
it's exciting.
You haven't done anything more exciting than walk off the end of a pier for many a year.
Listen, mate, if your idea...
What was the last time you did something more exciting than walking at the end of a pier?
If your idea of exciting is walking along a pier or something, it's no wonder you're such a saddo, such a sad life.
I don't have a sad life, actually.
Yeah,
I have many people in my life to spend my time with.
Really,
you,
yeah,
on the other hand,
yeah.
only get to go and watch your team get slaughtered at Stamford Bridge every year.
No.
You know, which is what you'd spent yesterday doing, right?
No.
Isn't that what you did?
No, you're talking nonsense. When you say you go down to Eastbourne all the time, what do you do when you get there?
Well, it depends what
Apart
I'm
from
going there
walking
for.
down the pier.
Well, I take my children there quite a lot because there's a couple of parks that they like to go to.
Right, okay.
There's a swimming pool there that they like to go to. The Sovereign Harbour itself, which is a sort of Canary Wharf style development.
Oh, is it?
Has
Right.
got lots of nice boats that you
Maybe
can
I
either
should
look
invest
at,
in property
or
there.
you can. Well, you should have done years ago. They've got they've got a beach there where we take the dog for a walk.
Yeah, okay,
they've
I've
got
heard enough,
skate
thanks,
parks.
yeah.
You've
Yeah,
heard
no
enough.
problem. Yeah.
There's a couple of big shopping centres which are quite nice.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
There's a couple of quite nice restaurants there.
Okay,
I mean,
that's
for
enough.
a guy that spends his entire life walking from one Wetherspoons back to the house and back to another Wetherspoons, you're being very derisory
No, I'm not.
about the things that I do with my family.
No, I'm not.
I think you better stop it before you get a
your
slap.
ridiculous description of my my social hours has been so discredited so many times. Nobody
Really?
takes any notice.
Well, I think they all know.
Well, I think
'Cause
we should
that's
move
where
on now.
you always get spotted out by people when you're on your own drinking.
No,
Yeah, you do.
No.
That's where all the pictures are from.
Well, what pictures? When
All
did
the
you see a picture of me out drinking on my own?
Last
Never.
week.
Never.
Last
No.
week.
Rubbish.
There was a guy who said, "Oh, great to meet Porky out on the street." And there you were in a pub with your arm around a guy and he was taking a selfie.
I was working.
Working.
I'd gone into that pub to talk to them about the Porky Scratchings
I see,
delivery.
right. Is this your new cover, is it?
No. No.
Yeah, no, I wasn't actually in the pub drinking. I was selling them some small snacks.
I was, yeah, the Porky Scratchings
Like
box.
like a travelling salesman.
Well, it's sort of things like that. I am an ambassador for Porky Scratchings.
The Willy
'cause actually
Loman.
My face is on the front.
Yeah,
okay?
that's why they're not selling.
What?
The Willy Loman of Talk Radio. We are the two mics.
The 21st century dream team of dialogue, debate, and discourse. The two mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
We've got a packed show this morning. Loads
certainly
of
have.
stuff going on. Just
Yep.
before we spoke to Alex Gregory, we were
Yes.
talking about a couple who are getting married today, right?
Yes, we were, yeah.
I found who they are now. It's Matt. Right,
Right.
who is getting married in the Forest of Dean,
Right.
to a woman whose name he doesn't give me.
Yep.
Unfortunately,
Yes,
he just
okay.
gives me a nice picture of the two of them,
And-
and he says, "Please, can we get a shout out as it's our wedding day today?" Oh, sorry, Matt and Sam.
Matt and Sam, that's right. So that must be Samantha.
Yeah, it must be.
Goodbye, Sam. Hello, Samantha.
What?
What was that? Whose record was that?
No idea.
Yeah, go on.
I don't know.
Oh, I bet our audience now. Our audience
I
of
don't
millions, you know.
Was it from about 1961 or something?
No. It's Goodbye, Sam. Hello, Samantha. Goodbye, Matt. Hello, Louise, or something like that. No, Goodbye, Lou. Hello, Louise. Yeah, Goodbye, Lou.
What?
Hello,
Have you gone
Louise.
mad?
No, it was Cliff Richard's, and it was his number one
Cliff
hit.
Richard?
Cliff Richard, his number one hit song. You know, about leaving the gang and marrying his girlfriend. You know.
Well, it's good to you up to date on all the popular
Yeah,
tunes
well,
at the moment.
no, that's because you said Matt
Cliff
and
Richard.
Cliff Richard, yeah.
Yeah.
So Matt and Sam, Forest of Dean wedding today. Very, very happy day for you. Many congratulations, and I hope the Forest of Dean has got more trees in it than the New Forest. It hasn't got any trees.
Well, I'm not sure it does, actually.
No.
It's got a lot of wild boars in it.
It's got wild boars running around all over the place.
Now, have a listen to this, because I want to see if it reminds you of any of your memories.
Okay. That's horrifying.
Amazing? Isn't that horrifying?
That's horrifying.
One of the most horrifying scenes I think ever made in the movie business, right? Particularly at the time when it was made.
But I've never seen it.
You've never seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
No.
I find that extraordinary.
Do you know the worst chainsaw footage I ever saw was in Scarface?
In Scarface, yeah.
Well,
that was nothing compared to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Dear.
Tobe Hooper, one of the great sort of horror film directors of time.
What's his name again?
Tobe Hooper.
Tobe Hooper.
Passed away over the weekend. We're going to talk to Van Connor now, who is, of course, a film critic for On Screen, about the important work that Tobe Hooper made. Yeah. And Van, a very good morning to you. I suppose we should start by saying that he was a bit of a groundbreaking director, wasn't he, Hooper?
Oh, absolutely. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is widely regarded still as one of the most influential films, not just horror films of all time.
Yeah. I mean, I remember going to see it as a teenager. I probably snuck in when I shouldn't have done, because I was probably not quite 18.
You snuck in, did you?
I probably did, yeah. What's wrong with that?
Well, you sneak in the true English language.
Well, we're talking about Tobe Hooper, who's an American.
Please,
right? And in Americanese, I snuck in.
Okay, go on.
Okay?
We'll keep going.
Thank you anyway for interrupting. Sorry about this, Van. He's incredibly rude, this guy I work with. But, I mean, it was the sort of the genre had never quite been made before. It seemed as though he had created a new way of making a film, because it looked like a kind of a student film, but yet it was brilliant. It looked like it was used using people who weren't really proper actors. It had a sort of reality feel about it.
Well, that's it. I mean, it was made on the cheap. It was made using local actors who weren't really stars. It was made during incredibly long days, 7 days a week, because at that point he had so little money that he couldn't afford to have the equipment rented for too long, so he had to get it done as quickly as possible. And then, of course, it got made, and it ran into a whole new crop of troubles. Basically, the fact that no one wanted to distribute it and no cinema wanted to show it.
Well, I was going to ask you that, Van. Did he have severe problems with the censors? Because I'm not a film critic like you, but I did read one time, even James Bond films, with fairly mild violent scenes and sex scenes and all that, used to have terrible trouble with the censors. So how did this get past the British Board of Film Censors?
Well, it didn't for over 20 years. It wasn't until the very late 90s that it was finally allowed through. And then I believe shortly afterwards was Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 finally got greenlit as well for cinemas. That didn't come through until just after the millennium. And it was the forerunner of the video nasties sort of movement. Films like The Exorcist and of that ilk that just were demonised by, at that point, politicians, tabloid newspapers and the BBFC.
Yeah, sorry, so this film was knocking around for 20 years, having only been shown in America but not in this country, do you mean?
It did get a very brief showing here, I believe, before it was pulled. But
I
definitely
saw it in a cinema, but it may have been, I think it wasn't shown in the big chain cinemas, and you had to go and see it in a sort of, what you might regard as a small...
places in Hampstead.
A light independent one, yeah.
I think what you got as well was actually a cut-down version. They did have to remove certain scenes in order to actually get it passed through. It was the Camden Borough Council were the first regional council to actually allow it to be shown.
Is that where you live?
Well, that's where I lived. There you go. Well, that must be why I saw it.
There you go.
Yeah, well, that was
advantages to living in Camden.
That's right. Now, when he made this film, obviously, we all have one great moment in our lives. Did Tobe go on to do anything else? I mean, apart from 2,
Well, 8 years later, he came out with a film which was more financially successful, but less regarded as a classic, even though it is in its own right a great horror movie, and that was Poltergeist.
Poltergeist.
I love that film as well, and I mean, I suppose this is now it's becoming clear that I was quite a horror film sort of fanatic at the time.
Yeah, one of the most says a lot about you as a child.
One of the most exciting. Well, I was a teenager.
Yeah, a teenager. Then a weirdo teenager.
Weirdo, really. One of the most extraordinary sort of and horrific scenes that I've ever seen is that part in Poltergeist where the guy goes in and he's looking in the mirror and he starts scratching his face and suddenly his face just starts disintegrating in front of him. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, that movie was produced by, it's based on a story by Spielberg, and I think Spielberg actually produced it.
He did produce it, yeah.
And there was talk for a long time about whether or not Spielberg was actually the directorial mind behind it, whether Tobe Hooper was more or less a stand-in. And it's something that's been often debated but never really conclusively drawn. Looking at it, I would say he definitely was the directorial brain behind it, but there is a Spielberg influence that you can't deny is there.
It's a lot slicker, isn't it? Which is what Spielberg, I guess, is known for.
Well, it's that polished suburban idea, and it comes. I think it's the same year as E.T., and it definitely shares a certain visual similarity with E.T. But you can't deny Tobe Hooper with the practical effect and everything. It makes that horror stuff work.
Excuse me, Van. Tell me this: did that film provide a launch pad for anybody who went on to be famous? I mean, even half famous or fully famous?
What, Texas Chainsaw or Poltergeist?
Yeah. Sorry, Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Well, Texas Chainsaw Massacre wasn't really a platform for any stars. I say they were all quite unknowns, but it was more the idea of it gave birth to certain ideas which are now relatively the norm.
Right.
So, for instance, Leatherface being an actual, horror character, a legendary horror icon, is something that character started. Horror icons came about after this.
Right.
You look at, I think it's 4 years later, you got Michael Myers.
Yeah.
2 years after that, you get Jason Voorhees. Sorry, you get Mrs. Voorhees, and then after that, you get Jason Voorhees. Then you get Freddy Krueger about a decade after Leatherface.
Wow, I mean, so what you're saying is it didn't launch any famous actors because on such a small budget. I suppose they were grateful to be in a film, but it changed the way that film direction was applied to the cinema.
Very much so. The idea as well, it gave birth to the idea of you could put nuanced meaning and subtext into horror movies, because that film is still debated now. You can get a bunch of film critics around a table, and it won't be long before they debate the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
What Absolutely you mean as either genius or rubbish?
It very easily could be either. I choose to believe it's genius.
Yeah. Sure. Also, films like the Blair Witch Project, which had that kind of technique of somebody carrying a camera and making it very shaky and making it sort of look like it was an amateur production.
Yeah.
Was very much, I suppose, the sort of the comedy or the way that this would have developed anyway, right? The way the filmmaking would have developed.
Very much so. Tobe Hooper actually got his start as a documentary cameraman. That's actually where he came from originally. He started in the 60s as a documentary cameraman. So when he went into making feature films, there was always that edge to him.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Will he ever be shown on television?
I don't know. I've not seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre on television since Channel 4 showed it about 10 years ago.
Oh, did they? I see. And I just wondered whether, with the death of old Tobe Hooper, whether somebody might put it on tonight or tomorrow night as a tribute or something.
It's entirely possible. In the last few weeks, because we lost George Romero quite recently as well, and you did notice that his film started appearing on television basically the same week.
That's right, yeah. That's exactly what I'm thinking, somebody might. Well, I hope so, because I'll watch it for the first time.
Well, I think you should. I think it would be great. Van, listen, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks,
Van Connor, film critic for On Screen. The other story about Poltergeist, which I'm just looking at here as I remembered it, was that it was known as one of the most cursed movies of all time.
What, you mean people in it died?
Yeah.
Did they?
All strange things happened to them.
Really?
There was the famous...
like Tutankhamun's tomb.
That's right, very similar to that. The girl, the child actress who was in it, actually died of cardiac arrest at the age of 12.
Good God.
And another child who was in it died of strangulation. Dominique Dunn, strangled by a boyfriend at the drive of a West Hollywood home when she was 22.
Good God.
Another star of the film was killed by an axe.
This is not good.
By an ex-convict in his hometown of Texas.
What, an axe, you mean, buried in his head or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah.
So what was the worst scene in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? You see legs being sawn off and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, basically, it was about a bunch of students who kind of ended up, I think their car broke down.
Right.
And they're in the midst of this sort of Texas wilderness.
Yeah.
And they go in to try and get help from some place nearby. It's a very familiar kind of horror type scene.
Sure.
And they come across this rather ramshackle kind of dwelling, which they
like
don't
small
know.
Holding.
Yeah, they don't really know much about. It's very rural. It's a couple of old cars in a lot over there. There's sort of overgrown trees.
Yeah.
And it turns out that there's this family, very odd family of people, one of whom is called Leatherface because he's got a mask.
Leathery face.
No, he's got a mask that he wears, which is made of leather.
Why? Because he's been burnt in a fire or something?
Well, no, he just wears it because he's a weirdo.
Really?
And it's made from cow skin, you think, or is it made from human skin? You're not sure. And he basically goes around attacking people with a chainsaw.
Yeah, well, hadn't the authorities sort of picked up on this guy previous to these
it's a bit
students?
It's a bit like Wolf Creek, you know.
Yeah, I know what you mean,
a horror film. You know, you've been to parts of Texas.
I know.
Nobody goes there.
Well,
you don't know what's out there.
Well, I do think that there are over like 10,000 bums who've been murdered on the roads in America, over the last
one of the reasons,
20 years, will never be accounted for.
No, I mean, one of the reasons there's so many serial killers in America is because it's so easy to travel around a very, very large country.
That's right.
Huge portions of the wilderness are uninhabited.
That's right, yeah.
And if you've got, say, a farm on something like 1 million acres,
that's right.
You don't know what the people are doing who are in the middle of it.
That's right.
And nobody would ever go and ask him.
No, that's absolutely right. And if some passing stranger's car breaks down, he knocks on your door for help, that's the end of the stranger.
Yeah, you never see him again.
No, that's right.
And nobody ever knows what happened to them.
That's right, yeah.
It's quite frightening.
It is quite frightening,
you see?
yeah. Thank God it's not like that in this country. Not scared,
it's not
no,
dark.
No,
but if the Texas Chainsaw Massacre comes around and you have a chance to watch it, you should.
I will.
You should. I'd like to see it again because it's, apart from anything else, it's such a long time since I saw it.
Right, okay.
But I mean, I don't think it's weird to be into horror movies when you're a teenager. I think most teenagers are.
Yeah,
I think it's weird not to be.
No, I don't agree. I mean, I didn't ever have that sort of...
Well, what were you into when you were a teenager?
When I was a teenager?
Yeah.
Well,
apart from drinking.
No, all the sorts of things that teenagers are into. A bit of music, bit of football, starting to take an interest in ladies and that kind of stuff. And, initiating myself into the Ballaration Trail, which has had me in its grip, the grip of the great.
Yeah, well, we all know that.
Ever since.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Tragically.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Recognise that song?
That's Beyonce, isn't it?
It is Beyonce. Yeah, it's a slightly different version of the normal Crazy in Love, though.
Right.
Which she performed famously in the halftime show in the NFL in the Super Bowl.
That's right.
A couple of years ago. Do you remember that?
Yeah, of course I do.
That version, actually, was part of a movie soundtrack.
Was it?
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of Grey,
that's
the
S&M movie.
Yeah, the S&M movie. I mean, the novel did awfully well, but the novel did awfully well. Did the film do very well?
I don't think it did, no.
I don't think it did.
They made another one, though.
Did they?
There's a sequel, yeah.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
What, 50 Shades of Grey 2?
Yeah, something like that.
Really?
But it's not called 50 Shades of Grey 2.
No, what's it called?
I can't remember.
No, you see, so you make all these ridiculous statements. And
it's not a ridiculous statement, it's just that I'm not that interested in the film itself, so I don't know what it's called.
Okay.
The reason I'm playing a bit of Beyonce there for you is because she is now likely to be the new singer for the next Bond movie. And I know that you're such a Bond fanatic.
Yeah.
I thought you might like to know that piece of information.
Well, that's very good of you to tip me up. Thank you very much indeed.
And she may well rope in her husband Jay-Z.
Right.
So it could be Jay-Z and Beyonce.
Jay-Z and Beyonce.
Doing
a pretty dynamic duo,
well, it would. I think they've looked at Adele's success and decided, I mean, not that they need to be any more successful than they already are, but Beyonce and Jay-Z, it's one of those things now, I think, that if you're a mega successful singer, what you want to now do is get yourself onto the James Bond bandwagon.
Well,
you know,
I think that has been forever. That's been forever. Once Tom Jones did it, once Shirley Bassey did it.
Well, I think we're talking a bit more sort of modern than that, really.
Yeah, of course you are, but I'm saying every top group in the world then wanted the James Bond gig, and the James Bond producers, old Cubby Broccoli, wanted the top artist in the world. That's why people like Duran Duran, Sir Paul McCartney, these people, I don't think Paul McCartney was queuing up to sing it because, of course, he was already, one of the legendary
artists of all time. No, but I think it's now become something to do. If you've got mega millions, I mean, no, they're not really doing it for money, but they want to have the kudos of being associated with James Bond.
I totally agree. I thought actually the Duran Duran one was the poorest of the lot.
Really?
Seeing you
Yeah,
with
this is not an opportunity. This is not an opportunity for you to sing.
Yeah.
You know, you've done all that. In fact, you've done all the singing you're ever going to do this year, because you used it all up, I think, in the week that I wasn't here.
Well, I wouldn't worry too much about that.
I'm not worried. Now we've got a very important person to talk to.
Because I want to talk about a very important story.
Yeah, well, Sian Griffiths is the education editor of the Sunday Times, the esteemed publication. It was out only yesterday, because this Eton scandal, which started sort of over the weekend, seems to have gotten a lot worse, and it's now affected a couple of new schools, including Charterhouse and Winchester. Yeah. Sian, what is going on in the public schools of this country?
Well, it doesn't look good, does it? It doesn't look good at all. Yeah, you're right. It started a few days ago when Eton's deputy head resigned, and there were claims that students had advance sight of some questions on an economics exam this summer. Then it spread to Charterhouse, and the allegation there was the same, that pupils had been given advance warning of what would appear in this pre-U economics exam. And now, this morning, we've got Winchester College, who suspended its head of History of Art, Lawrence Wolfe, after claims that he gave students tips on what would feature in 2 art history exam papers. So lots of allegations of cheating floating around in some, involving pupils from top public schools. I must say that personally, on the Sunday Times, I did get a letter on Saturday morning, an anonymous letter in my pigeonhole, from concerned students, and they were making the allegations about Eton, and they were making the allegations that pupils at Charterhouse had also seen the same questions in advance, and asking people to investigate. Unfortunately, that came in on Saturday, and the story had already broken. Yeah. But I think there are students out there who are really fed up and cross, that basically, they've been sitting an exam, and they feel that other pupils who've been sitting the same exam have had a big advantage, and that's really unfair.
That is terribly unfair. Am I right also in thinking, Sean, that some of these teachers who may or may not be implicated also have a role on the matriculation boards who set the questions?
Yeah, 2 of the teachers are also examiners, apparently, for Cambridge International Exam Board, which is the exam board that sets this pre-U examination. And now there are calls, of course, for that kind of practice to stop. It shouldn't be the case.
Conflict of interest.
Yeah, if you're a teacher at a top private school, you're also an examiner on the paper that your kids are going to be examined on. That's really wrong, and it's bad, and it's got to stop.
Is the suggestion from the students who are annoyed that it's sort of privileged people who are getting this information, i.e., are they paying for it? Are they the sons and daughters, perhaps, of very, very wealthy people? And who is getting the information, I suppose, and why?
Well, it's all very unclear at the moment, exactly what happened. These stories have broken from these private schools this week, but earlier in the summer there were stories that an edXcel economics A-level paper some questions had been leaked online before pupils sat the exam, and they were going around on Twitter and things. And there is a sort of criminal investigation going on there into who leaked those papers. Look, these top private schools, they're under immense pressure to get their kids top grades in GCSE and A-levels. Their parents are paying, if you go to Eton, your parents pay more than £30,000 a year for your schooling. So, and they really depend on fantastic A-level and GCSE results. So these teachers are under a lot of pressure to deliver. And this year, of course, the exams have all been made a lot harder, or coursework's been scrapped. And a lot of the fiddling that was going on is supposed to have been abolished. And so, there really is a lot of pressure on teachers in these schools. But at the bottom line, I don't know what went on here, but allegations of cheating are very, very serious and have to be taken very seriously by everybody.
Absolutely. And Sean, just to develop the point you've just made, in the radio industry, we live or die on our figures. Do you understand what I mean? Once a quarter, somebody says this many people are listening, and if it's dropped off or it's gone up, that's how your career goes up and down. Is it the same for a teacher? If suddenly he's only hitting, 91% pass rate for his class of sixth formers in mathematics or something, and then he's got to look inside himself?
Yeah, absolutely. Teachers and schools now, they're really being measured on their performance and exam results. And there are league tables of the schools at the top, and, and even within a school, teachers with poor GCSE and A-level results won't belong in those jobs, especially in private schools.
Is that really? Well, that's ruthless. Yeah. That's a ruthless occupation. When you think these academics just sit back in their armchair and let everybody get on with it. I didn't realise it was so competitive.
Oh, it's hugely competitive now. The government have brought in a load of metrics to measure schools by exam results. And, if you want your kid to go to Oxford or Cambridge, and a lot of the parents who pay for their kids to go to these private schools, that's where they want their kids to go, because they know that's the route to a, professional career and a lot of money. And then you get to those universities by having 3 A's at A-level, 3 A stars at A-level. So there's a lot riding on these exams.
And is there a sort of an overarching body that can discipline every one of these private schools in terms of how they've allowed this to happen? Or are they all responsible for their own standards, if you like?
They're all responsible for their own standards, but there is a body that disciplines the exam boards and regulates the whole conduct of examinations, and it's called Ofqual. It's the exam regulator, and a woman called Sally Collier is the chief examiner. And she, I think, will be taking a really dim view of what's been going on this summer, because she's very determined to kind of clean up the exams industry and weed out any reports of malpractice. There has been a lot of the exam boards also, to blame. They don't report all the allegations of malpractice that go on. A lot of them get settled very quietly, and we never get to hear about them. And I think Sally Collier would really like anyone who is concerned about any incident in an exam this summer to get in touch with her and let her know, so that she can investigate what has happened. And hopefully we, in the press, can report on it.
Yeah, absolutely right. Now, Sean, I may have been dragged into this scandal about 40 years ago, because when I took my art A-level, Mr. Gordon Norrie, who was my art teacher, I handed him my painting, and he said...
Painting?
Yes, he said, the black border's a bit weak, Parry. I think we should add to it. And I said, but the time's up, sir. He said, the clock has stopped for 10 minutes, Parry, and I've turned my back. Would I? And then I painted more black into the black border. Do you think I should go and confess?
Well, did you get an A?
I've got to
probably
see.
What he meant was you just cover the whole thing in black paint. It would be a massive improvement.
Well, I think it's a bit late, but it's a bit late in the day now, really, isn't it? But he was cheating. Your art teacher. I mean, it's funny looking back, isn't it? We've all got those stories.
Yes.
I have a story about my NCTJ shorthand exam, which is nothing to do with me.
You weren't the one that Porky used to cheat in his, were you? Because he has admitted previously that he used somebody else's paper.
Well, a female member of the class I was in pushed it under her typewriter to mine, because we were getting on quite well at the time. So I've had to admit to that as well.
We all have those stories, and looking back, they seem really funny, but they're not. It's not really fair, is it?
No, of course it's not. No.
Well, on the other hand, it depends on how philosophical you want to get, Sean, because I suppose you might say that some of the people in Eton, at Charterhouse, at Winchester, they're going to end up in some quite big jobs over the course of their lives, and an experience of cheating and a way of beating everybody else to the punch might be considered an advantage.
An advantage? Well, you see, I take the opposite view. I think that if you've got where you are because you've cheated, you're probably not up to doing the job.
Yeah,
I say that about
I agree. You're a scumbag, but then again, some would say, but I mean, the House of Commons is full of them. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I would say that, but some people would.
Some people would. You couldn't possibly comment. Sean, thank you very much indeed. We'll leave it there. Sean Griffiths, education editor of the Sunday Times. I think Sean's a bit confused about the moral compass scenario. Yes. Not too quite sure whether it's a good idea to cheat or not.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah. Listen, I'd like to hear about any of our millions of listeners who have been into cheating. Yeah. I've made my...
Well, you've admitted that you were massively into it, right?
I've made my confession only on one occasion. Well, two occasions.
More than one occasion.
No, one or two occasions.
One or two.
So listen, why don't you give us a call, folks? I'll read you out the number. It is 0344 499 1000. Give us a call, please, and tell us how badly you wanted to pass your exam, which drove you to cheat.
A lot of people are calling you a hypocrite this morning, because we travelled in here from Skye in a car which has an electric engine.
Yes, that's right.
And you've always banged on about how you would never accept electric cars as being the future.
Well, actually, we were in a rush to get here, and I wasn't able to negotiate with the cab company exactly what sort of car I wanted. You see what I mean?
Well, it wasn't your cab company to negotiate with, that's why.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying, so I had to take what I was given. I'm very grateful. Thank you very much indeed.
Saying that if you were in a position to order a car, you would order a non-electric car?
I get completely, honestly, unhinged. No, not unhinged.
Well, you don't have far to go, do you?
No, I get completely discombobulated. Sitting in a car.
Also not far to go.
Sitting in a car, and every time you stop at lights, the engine cuts out.
Well,
But
your car does that already.
No, it doesn't, because I switch off the eco. Switch off the eco, so it doesn't do it.
Such a caring, sharing member of the population.
It completely phases me, because I think the engine has cut out because the petrol's run out, or I think the engine's never going to start again, or it's an added pressure to driving, knowing when the engine's going to kick back in.
An added pressure.
It's a horrible feature.
I think you must be on the edge of a nervous breakdown.
It's a horrible feature.
If your engine cutting out sends you into a sort of state of flux.
Well, it does. It does.
Unbelievable. Nurse.
It's not unbelievable.
Nurse.
It's not unbelievable.
This is Talk Radio.
Yeah.
The 21st century dream team of dialogue, debate and discourse. The two mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Talk Radio. We are, of course, the two mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on. Pete says this: Porky names and shames his former, probably dead teacher for cheating. Now probably ruined the man's reputation for eternity.
Well, no, but
he didn't really have to give his name out, did you?
Oh, he'll be long dead. Don't worry.
But he might have a family who are still listening and who might be offended by the fact that you suggested that their very esteemed relative was in fact nothing more than a rank cheat.
Can I tell you, he was a great guy, and he got me through O-level. Nobody thought I had a hope in hell of passing Art O-level, okay? And he saw something in me and encouraged me, and half of the paper was on the architecture of churches in the Middle Ages, okay?
Yeah.
And half of it was a painting you had to do, right?
Yeah. So what did you draw? I'm intrigued.
Well, I tell you what, it was quite odd, really. It was, you know, all these records come out in those days about the melting pot and all that, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Take a little white man.
That was Mink, what was it?
Blue Mink,
wasn't it?
Blue Mink. A lady who sung it had very protruded front teeth, didn't she?
I don't remember that, no.
Yeah. Madeline Bell was her name, I think.
Maddie Bell, I think, was somebody else.
Oh, she? All right. Anyway, the point is, it was all about melting pot and all that. So having listened to that record, I then drew a picture of a white person and a black person in silhouette, and then a huge vortex spinning around, right?
If they're in silhouette, how can you tell what colour they are?
What I meant was, the silhouette of a body without any features on it. You see what I mean? One was black and one was white.
I see.
And then I did a red and yellow, vortex thing spinning away down.
Vortex of doom?
Yeah, that's right. And they both sort of were spinning into it. You see what I mean?
Yes.
But around the edge, I had a black border. So when I took it up and handed it into Mr.
That's
Orry,
quite creative for you.
Yeah, it was actually, yeah. He said, because, this is what teenagers thought about at the time, it's all making a better world. I still want a better world.
You don't want a better world. You've never asked for a better world in your life. You want a better world for yourself.
Well, I want a better world for everybody.
You don't want a better world for anybody else.
But I don't mind being at the front of the queue. But anyway, so I had this in, and Mr. Orry, who was a very dour sort of a chap, with big eyebrows, a bit like Dennis Healy type figure,
Yeah.
And
did your lecturers wear sort of gowns or not?
Well, Mr. Orry wore a white coat because he was the head of art, the art department.
Okay.
But all the others wore gowns and some of them mortarboards.
Okay.
And so anyway, he said, well, sorry, it's a fine effort, but the border around the edge of the coat.
Yeah, well, you already told us that bit, but I mean, were there other people there at the time? I mean, what was everybody else saying?
I can't remember. I don't know. Were you doing
this exam on your own?
I tell you, it was very funny, actually, about Gordon. I know I did on my own. I tell you, it was very funny. Well, it's not funny, actually. It's quite tragic for that concern.
Okay.
Somebody was messing around in class.
Yeah.
So Gordon Orry thought he was being, very clever by walking around with his hands in his white coat pockets, right? Yeah. And as he passed the boy, he turned around and he whacked him on the back of the head, which he used to do in those days.
People did it all the time.
They used to clip them. Unfortunately, this poor kid was leaning forward and Gordon managed to smash his face onto the edge of his desk and knock his teeth out.
That seems a bit harsh. Why are you laughing so much?
Because it was so funny. I couldn't believe it, because then what happened was had all this blood all over the floor.
Right. Was the teacher fired for that?
Well, this kid was screaming. Gordon didn't know what to do about all this. Oh dear.
Well, that is a bit of a blunder for a teacher.
Can you imagine your child going home that night from school with no teeth?
Right.
And your mum and dad saying, "Oh, what did you do at school today?" Say, "Well, the art teacher knocked me teeth out."
Well, that's one of the reasons why teachers aren't allowed to do that anymore.
Exactly.
Well, surely the parents would have been called in.
Well, it was all a terrible scandal, in the end. And all
I was once held up by the throat by our English teacher.
Oh, really?
There was a bloke called
How did he get you off the ground?
Well, he just because he was quite a big guy.
Yeah.
And I think I was about 14 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was messing about in the class, and he became enraged, because I was always making fun of people, generally speaking.
Right. You're an unruly pupil. called?
I wasn't particularly unruly, but I was quite cheeky.
Yeah, sure.
I was getting thrown out of class quite a lot. Anyway, for some reason, he became so enraged that he grabbed me. He grabbed my sort of collar, in his fist, and held me up against the wall.
Right.
As a result of which, he scratched my neck.
Oh dear.
And I didn't really think too much of it.
Yeah.
But I went home that night, and my mother said to me, "What's happened to your neck?" I said, "Oh, I got a few scratches." She said, "Well, how did that happen?" I said, "Oh, we used to call him Psycholes."
Oh yeah.
I said, Psycholes grabbed me and held me up against the wall. And she said, "He did what?" My mother was a teacher.
Yeah, right.
She said, "He did what?" And so I told him. They went in to see the headmaster.
Yeah.
And he was suspended. And in fact, I think he was fired.
Yeah.
For doing it.
Yeah,
so your guy should have been removed forthwith.
Well, to be perfectly honest, there was something of the public school attitude in my school. It was at Arrow Grant Grammar School.
Well, mine was the same. I mean, mine was run by Dominican brothers.
Yes, exactly.
Who were very cruel.
That's right.
This guy wasn't actually a
Dominican brother.
Dominican brother.
No.
He was civilian.
Yeah, but the idea
but I mean, we had a discipline master. We had a slipper. We had all that.
Yeah, that's right. The idea was that that you took your punishment and you didn't moan about it.
Well, well, that's all very well.
And if the police had arrived, teeth out there. If the police had arrived and said what happened to you, you said, "Oh, I fell over in the playground playing football." That was the unwritten code. You see what I mean?
It was like a sort of gangster.
Yeah, it was a gangster thing because the school didn't want to, any publicity about teachers going around knocking the pupils' teeth out for obvious reasons.
Pete says now Porky adds ABH to his dead teacher's rap sheet.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I suppose I do. Really.
Here's a great one from Jim. He says, "No surprise, Porky's teacher wore a white coat. Did the classroom have padded walls by any chance?"
Yeah, I know, something like that. But it was very unfortunate actually because he was a very good guy. And a real gentleman. I mean, to be honest, he was a part-time teacher.
Yeah.
Because he was, in fact, an art historian, and he was also an art auctioneer, and he invested in paintings and sold them and all that kind of stuff. He was a good guy.
And so you got an O-level in art, did you?
I did, yeah.
And was that the one you cheated in then?
Well, I didn't cheat. I got a few minutes extra to redo my black border.
That's cheating.
Well,
you can take that one away if you're 14.
No,
you're 13 now.
No, not really.
Here's one from Mark talking about your early life as a teenager.
Yeah.
What did Porky do as a teenager? Caravanning, bladderating, and horizontal refreshment with secretaries in North Wales.
Well, I mean that's a bit harsh, isn't it?
Probably true though.
By the way, how many songs a year do you think you listen to or hear in everyday life?
Do they have to be independent? Can you count?
How many times? How many times?
A song more than once?
Yes. How many times will you hear a song? How many times will you hear a song?
Well, I listen to music every day, pretty much.
Yeah,
at some
sure.
point or
but
another.
I'm talking about going into supermarkets, on public transport.
Right. Well.
Do you know that you listen
probably millions, I would have thought.
Well, no, 3,500 songs a year, different songs a year. You will hear in your course of your.
That's 10 a day.
That's 10 a day. Yeah. In your normal everyday life, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I suppose that.
Young
might
adults
be about
aged
right.
between 18 and 24, because they also seek to listen to music, will listen to 6,280 different tracks in a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at that age, I find this very hard to believe. A person listens to music for about 3.5 hours a day. Now, that in our day, that would mean we'd have to be lying back on the couch for 3.5 hours listening to a record player.
Yeah.
Of course, these days they've got music in their ears all the time.
Well, that's true. The Sony Walkman, I suppose, was the start of that. I mean, for example, now if I'm driving, if there's not something interesting on the radio to listen to, which there isn't always, I will put music on.
Right.
Last night I was driving up from Sussex.
What do you do? Plug your mobile phone in?
Well, I can play it off the phone. I play it off my iPad, or I can put music radio on, put Virgin on, which is one of ours, and I can basically listen to probably between Sussex and London about 20 songs, maybe.
Really?
25 songs.
Yeah. You see, because I have this fear of being out of touch, I don't like listening to pre-recorded music in cars.
Why not?
Because I need to hear the news every hour and a half hour.
Well, you can still do that. I mean, you can, for example, I did it the other night because I thought I wouldn't mind hearing the news at whatever time it was, 10 o'clock, I think.
Yeah.
I just, switched it over and listened to the news at 10 o'clock and then went back to the music.
Yeah, but you forget, you see, because I'm so involved with so much going on in my head all the time. I will say, oh, no, I missed the news. It's 10:05.
I've missed the news.
Yeah. So
maybe it's because you're sitting there at traffic lights in fear of the fact you've run out of petrol because the engine's cut out.
The engine's got off. No, that's not true.
You're in a right old state, aren't you?
No.
I mean, I wouldn't want to be in a car with you driving
Why?
because you clearly aren't concentrating on, you've got fear of the car cutting out and losing power.
Fear of punctures.
Right, which is happening all the time.
That's right.
Worries about making the news and maybe missing the news.
Yes.
Concerns about being out of touch with something that's going on.
Trying to make the Bluetooth work, which obviously goes off and on all the time.
You know what annoyed me? Because I had the other car, which is I don't normally drive.
That's when I rang you the other day.
Yeah, and I couldn't work out the Bluetooth. I couldn't get my phone on the Bluetooth. So I had to That's why I had to call you back later.
In a sophisticated car, the only thing you have to do is switch Bluetooth on your mobile phone, don't you? And then it automatically keys in.
No, it doesn't.
Does it not?
It's not that straightforward. I mean, on my car that I drive all the time, it's very straightforward because it's already been sorted out. Preset. But if you get into a different car, sometimes there's a different procedure.
Right, okay.
And you have to make your Bluetooth phone or your device, as they call it, available for the Bluetooth in the car.
Well,
and I couldn't work it out.
I must have worked it out for mine because all I ever do is check that the Bluetooth switch on my mobile.
Yeah, but now yours has been paired. You see.
Yeah, it must
so
have been,
as soon as you get in the car, it automatically repairs itself up.
Yeah. Anyway,
but if what do you mean anyway? I'm explaining it to you.
Yeah, I know, and I understand it. It was
a
great invention.
It was a great invention, because it means I actually have more conversations in my car than anywhere else.
Yeah, my mother doesn't like me talking to her on my mobile phone from the car.
Why not?
She says the static and the atmospheric scare, and I understand what she says because the signal moves in and out and all that kind of stuff.
I hardly ever now have any kind of conversations on a landline phone.
Oh, I don't have any, but I'm sorry, in the car can be wavery, that's all, the signal.
Yeah, but it can be. That's the advantage.
Yeah,
you say, oh, sorry, I cut out there.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Stay tuned to Talk Radio for a very special Bank Holiday Monday schedule. From 1 p.m, radio legend Tommy Boyd will provide high-quality entertainment and we'll be taking your calls on whatever issue is bothering you today.
That's right, and James Max, or Maxie, will jump on the drive time hot seat from 4 p.m. to bring you up to speed with the stories of the day. After 7, it's back to normal service with James Whale and Ash, and finish your Bank Holiday Monday with Ian Lee and his late-night alternative from 10 until 1. Talk Radio, we will get you talking. Now then, when did you last buy a Damien Hirst piece of artistry?
I'm ashamed to say I've never bought a piece of Damien Hirst artistry, but probably because I couldn't afford it. Yeah. And also, I'm not a great fan of any of his work, really, to be honest.
Neither am I. And because I could be described as a Philistine, I've always felt that, these Damien Hirst pieces are so puzzling as to what the real value to the art world that they are, that people have gone around buying them just in case. You see what I mean?
Well, that part of the art world, I suppose. I mean, if you've got that much money, I suppose it's fine. But that part of the art world that kind of just follows itself like sheep, and everybody goes, "Oh, it's a Damien Hirst, so I better buy it," just because they figure it's trendy.
Yes,
I think it's a bit sad. Really.
Yeah, you may well be right. But anyway, I think people like, for instance, Mr. Saatchi of Saatchi and Saatchi fame, but then later really more famous for having a fallout with his girlfriend.
Is that not a different Saatchi?
No,
I think the Saatchi that was the art collector, I thought was different from the one.
I think you're absolutely right.
Who had a falling out with Nigella Lawson.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
two different Saatchis. Same family.
Yeah. I think one of them donated a lot of stuff to
Charles
the Tate, didn't
Saatchi is the one you're thinking of.
Charles Saatchi is what I'm talking about.
He single-handedly kind of made a lot of artists like Damien Hirst at the beginning.
He did,
because he was the only one that was creating the market.
So who's the other Saatchi?
Morris, isn't it?
Yeah, but Charles Saatchi is the artistic one, isn't he?
Is the artistic one,
that's the one I was talking about. He went out with Nigella Lawson, didn't he?
No, I think it was Morris.
Oh, it was Morris?
I'm pretty sure.
No, I don't think it was.
No?
I think it was Charles.
Really?
I think Charles... I know Charles Saatchi was the gentleman who went out with Nigella Lawson. Uh-huh. And I also thought he was the art guy, but I mean, we may have this wrong. So apologies if we got it confused.
Okay.
But anyway, the point I was going to make is this, is that I have this report. Spot of bother for Hirst as latest works get brush off from experts. The artist enjoying comeback show in Venice, but analysts warn buyers his resale prices have passed their peak. And they give some examples. For instance, there's a piece here with all sorts of dots on it, coloured dots.
Oh, yeah.
And that's all it looks like a canvas with coloured dots on it.
Do you know there's a similar thing to that underneath? You'll pass it when you come from London Bridge sometimes. Underneath the railway bridge.
Yeah, absolutely right.
But it's done with lights.
Yes, that's right.
I rather like that.
And on the other side, there's a little taxi office, isn't
yes,
there?
That's right. But that's not a Damien Hirst that's under the bridge,
No, I don't think so. But anyway, look at this. That's the 2015 sale price of this piece called Cuprich Acetate,
okay.
Was 133,250 in 2008.
Right.
Right.
Uh-huh.
It's now valued at 60,000.
Really?
So if you bought that for 133,250, this report says that's now valued at 60,000.
You're taking a bath. Well, a lot of people said, and by the way, you're right. It was Charles Saatchi who was both the spouse of Nigella Lawson and the art guy.
Right.
The point is that he created this false market. You know, it's a bit like, say, for example, going out and buying up, I don't know, every sort of Lowry that has ever existed in the world.
It was a bit like Mr. Abramovich paying more money for footballers than anybody else and pushing the price up.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's a sort of inherent something which has got inherent quality. It's a bit like what I was going to say. It's a bit like you buying... creating a new market in L.S. Lowry paintings and wanting to buy everyone up.
That's right.
Every L.S. Lowry painting will go up in value.
Yes, that's right.
But and then when you've got them all, if somebody else wants to buy them off you, the value falls down.
Yeah, well, as I say, the values, I mean, they apparently, you know, a bit like companies have to put profit warnings if they think that they're not going to come up to expectations. Apparently the art world often issues directives that, you know, if you buy these particular, the resale value in 3 years' time may be less than the value you're paying for the painting.
Isn't that a bit like those adverts on TV where they say the value of your investment may go down or up?
Yes, well, that's the share price. I mean,
I know.
Stock market.
No, but it's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, it is. Yeah, you're right, it is, in terms of the value of what you're buying. Yeah. But I just thought it was interesting because I shouldn't think he could care less because he's made hundreds of millions of pounds. You know,
you're talking about Damien Hirst?
Yeah, Damien Hirst. Yeah, well,
I'm sure he doesn't care.
I mean, you know, just because somebody says, "Oh, well, that painting that I bought of yours, 133,250, is now only worth 60,000." So what are you going to do about it? And he's going to say a painting is worth what anybody's going to pay for it at any one time.
Well, he also
so
might
I'm afraid
say
that is not my responsibility.
Well,
he's right, it's not.
Well, it's not, and he might say, "Well, maybe I'll draw another painting, and somebody will buy it for 100,000."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and it take me. In fact, some people have accused him of actually doing that thing that some writers do, and getting other people to actually contribute to the paintings, or the works, you know, so that he's not actually the guy responsible for it anyway.
Yes, that's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
No, I've got something good to tell you.
Yeah, go on. Yeah,
you know these quotes that people repeat over and over again, and they describe them as being said by a particular person.
Yes.
Well, I've come across a fantastic list of quotes.
Oh, misquotes.
Of quotes which were never actually said by the people who are supposed to have said them.
Excellent.
Like, for example, "Give me lucky generals." Right?
Yes,
which is attributed to Napoleon.
Yes.
But in fact, it was never said by Napoleon.
Oh, who was it said by?
It was said, we believe, by a guy called Cardinal Mazarin, who was the chief minister of France from 1642 to 1661.
And Napoleon wasn't even alive in those years.
No, he wasn't. And apparently he's the one who's said to have asked a general, est-il habile, meaning is he skillful, or est-il beureux, is he lucky?
Yeah, I see.
So that's one, right?
Right.
The second one I'm going to give you is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yeah.
Now that was attributed to Albert Einstein.
That's right.
But he never said it either.
Who said it?
It was in a Narcotics Anonymous pamphlet in 1981.
Really?
Yeah.
In 1981?
Yeah.
Well, how come... Well, Einstein, again, wasn't around for 50 years before that.
No, but people have attributed... It's like things like... Do you remember when we saw Sir Rod Stewart and we spent some time with him in his private jet and we flew up to Scotland with him?
That's right.
And he said, there are two things that people say about me, which I try to repeat, but now I don't bother anymore. I was never a grave digger.
Yeah. And I never had a trial with Brentford.
And I never had a trial with Brentford Football Club.
That's right.
Both of which, and funnily enough, only the other day I heard somebody referring to him as a former gravedigger.
Really?
Because that's kind of the legend, but it's not true.
Yeah, it is,
Here's one final one. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing, attributed to Edmund Burke by John F. Kennedy in a speech in 1961. Burke never said it.
I thought Franklin D. Roosevelt said that.
John Stuart Mill apparently said in 1867, bad men need nothing more to compass their ends than that good men should look on and do nothing.
And who was that from?
John Stuart Mill, philosopher.
Who was he?
He was
a
philosopher.
Yeah, philosophers get on my nerves, actually.
Well, they would do, yeah.
It's a load of,
Well,
garbage.
philosophy is what has driven much of Western society over the previous 500 years.
Yeah, but you've seen the film Chance, haven't you?
What?
Or Chancey?
Chance?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, Peter Sellers, Chance the Gardener.
Do you mean Chauncey Gardner?
Chauncey Gardner,
It's called Being There.
Being There, that's right. Is it called Being There? Yeah.
It's called Being There.
Yeah, well, I talk about philosophers and all
You've
that.
seen the time,
all these high-powered American politicians. And this guy says, in spring, I think we should plant the vegetables so that by autumn they will have blossomed.
Yeah.
And these are all looking at each other, these guys, the top economists in America, saying, this guy's got it. Did you hear what he just said? And they all think that his basic observations on a garden, because he's been the gardener all his life, were actually brilliant and genius economic plans.
Right.
So that's what philosophy's all about.
Well, it's
complete
not
garbage.
But you see, you're a complete philistine when it comes to lateral thinking and doing anything other than just making money. How about this one? You should know who said this or who's attributed to say this. I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. Who's meant to have said that? Everybody knows this one.
I think it's Tony Wedgwood Ben.
No,
no,
it's not. It's Voltaire.
Oh, Voltaire,
who was a French philosopher, right?
Yeah, okay.
But he didn't say it.
It
was actually said by Evelyn Beatrice Hall, who was paraphrasing Voltaire's argument.
Really?
Yeah. So now you know. So when you use that again...
What did Voltaire write?
What did he write?
Was any good?
Nothing that I can name at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
but
he's irrelevant. One of history's irrelevant people.
He's not irrelevant. No. I mean, the point is you read all that stuff. I mean, I've read all these books about 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Right, but I don't remember much of what they said.
What, you read Voltaire?
Yeah, I did. I read Voltaire. I read Montesquieu. I read, all those kind of philosophy-type books.
Who was the German guy?
The German guy,
yeah,
Hegel.
Some German philosopher called...
well, Hegel was one of them.
Was Hegel?
Bertrand Russell was an English philosopher that I read.
Nietzsche.
Yes, thank you. Nietzsche. So excited you remember his name.
Exactly. Yeah, I did.
Did you read any Nietzsche?
No, I don't read all that rubbish. Because,
really? So you haven't read any philosophy?
No, I don't need to. I'm more philosophical than the philosophers.
Well, you may well be.
I have philosophies in life. Like, for instance, if you're not winning, it's because you're not trying hard enough, okay? Yeah. That's one of my philosophies.
That's not really a philosophy.
It is a philosophy. No. It makes absolute common sense.
It's a statement.
It's also a principle by which I guide my life,
right.
Okay?
Why did you support Everton, then?
I support Everton because it was born into my blood.
Right.
It wasn't a choice. It was a
punishment.
No, it wasn't a choice. It was an inheritance.
I see.
Of which I've been extremely grateful every day of my life since.
How pathetic.
No, it's not.
This is
You're
talkRADIO.
pathetic. You don't support anybody.
The 21st century dream team of dialogue, debate, and discourse. The two mics on talkRADIO. We'll get you talking.
How about this one from Wrong Star? He says, during the mid-'80s, we had a teacher whose nails were like something out of Macbeth.
Right.
She used to stab us in the top of the head with them.
Good. Stabbing the top of the head?
I think everybody's got a kind of a terrible teacher story, haven't they?
Yeah, I'm sure they have, yeah.
Because the problem is, we were talking about this cheating that's going on in public schools.
Yes.
Which is clearly a massive problem, because it's a problem more for the schools in a way than it is for the pupils.
But it sounds to me like it's a competitively driven racket, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Charterhouse want better figures than... I'm not saying anybody's turning a blind eye to this and all that, but I mean, clearly they don't want to be slipping down the league of exam passes.
Well, no, I mean, but in the state school system, which is the one I have knowledge of, just because my children are in it.
Yes.
I mean, there's an awful lot of what you might regard as interesting and unusual practices.
Yeah.
In order to get yourself an Ofcom 1 rating, or in order to push up the number of passes at a certain level that you get in the school. Yeah. Because everybody is driven now by results.
Sure.
And by the better the results are, the better the school is.
Absolutely.
Same as special needs. You know the special needs racket that goes on in this country.
No, what's that?
The more every special needs pupil that you have in your school, you get an amount of money from the central funding budget.
I see.
So the more special needs kids that you have, the more money the school gets.
Yeah, but I mean, special needs children need treating very personally and
but what I'm saying
great
is
detail and attention. So that must take up a lot of resources.
No, because what I'm telling you is happening is that a lot of people are designated as special needs without being necessarily special needs.
Okay, so somebody who's just naughty is suddenly attention deficit disorder and all that.
And then they get more money.
Yeah, I see.
And that's the racket.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to come back to education at a later date in the show, because right now we're going to talk about a very interesting man by the name of Kenneth Muckford, who has built, would you believe, a Boeing 737 and a Lynx helicopter simulators
in his back garden.
In his back garden.
Fantastic.
Let's find out how he's done it. Kenneth, a very good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Hiya, guys.
Hi, Kenneth. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, I suppose this is one of those stories where you think to yourself, well, yeah, obviously he's built these, but they're not really the same size as a Boeing 737 or a Lynx helicopter, are they?
No, they are actually full-scale 737,
That's
and
amazing.
Of course the Lynx is an actual Lynx.
Wow.
You mean you've got the shell of a Lynx helicopter?
Yeah, I managed to get I got hold of the front end of a Lynx helicopter that was being decommissioned.
Yeah.
And I brought the empty shell back home and looked at it for a year.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Scratched my head and wondered why I did it.
Yeah, well, nevertheless, you've done it. Now, some people spend their leisure time reading or watching television or listening to music. Do you go out into the garden, literally, and get into your simulator, 737, and do you then set a flight plan to take off from London Heathrow and land in Kennedy in New York?
Well, I don't do long-haul kind of flying. It's more close to the ground, so around about 5,000 feet, short haul. So, I'd like to take off and land as much as possible. So 15, 20 minutes in the air is enough, and then you come down and land. So.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, I've never been in a simulator, but does it replicate entirely, to every vibration, to every bit of wind noise and all that, exactly the same experience as the cockpit in a real plane?
Well, the difference is that in the real plane you'll feel a lot of inertia.
Yeah.
Whereas my simulator is a static simulator.
Right.
If I could afford a motion simulator, I think it would have been a boat in Mauritius or somewhere like that.
I see.
I suppose so. Now, these are open to the public to try out. Is that by way of sort of just giving them the experience, or is it something that people come to you for because they want to kind of get into being a pilot?
It's mainly gifts. So the business evolved into a company. It first started as a hobby, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and got a mind of its own basically. And I work for the company now. But so those people that you just don't know what to get them as a gift. This is the sort of thing, or that person that always sits in their holiday plane and lands and goes, that wasn't a very good landing. Usually the wives buy the husband the ticket, and then they come here and attempt to replicate the landing, and they do it pretty well. They do hit the deck pretty hard, and fortunately I don't have to replace the undercarriage every time they touch down.
No, absolutely not. Now, in addition to that, do you actually sometimes go down to a real airport and fly around because you're an aviation fan?
No, nobody will give me a 737 to go and play around in.
Well, no, obviously. But I just wondered whether you had a little private plane or two,
No, I was going to go and re-qualify, but my wife decided, no, I should rather have a motorbike. So she bought me a motorbike to go and enjoy myself.
Why shouldn't you just get you a motorbike simulator? Is it something that people who are maybe frightened of flying would benefit from?
Because... Yeah, we do get several people that want to, understand everything that's going on in the cockpit. And what we really do is we talk about, we have a cabin area where the person sits there, and we go through all the noises and things that they would hear in the cabin, and we explain what those are. And then we go through to the cockpit where we show them what the pilots are actually doing to create all of those noises. And we then take the person all the way through quite a long, lengthy process, but they actually end up flying the aircraft for a short period of time. But we do that one-to-one, so we don't do it in groups. We just do, the individual gives me a ring and says, I've got this issue with flying, and then we usually go through the whole process with them.
Sure, OK. Now, Kenneth, I've flown in a helicopter, I don't know, probably half a dozen times, maybe a bit more, and I love that moment that you feel free of the ground. Do you understand what I mean? The sort of, I'm free of earthly bonds. Is that replicated in your Lynx?
In the Lynx, it's pretty cool because your peripheral vision is all gone, so all you see is the visuals outside of the windows of the aircraft. And if you're throwing it about, your brain thinks you're moving. And I've had a few people argue with me that we were moving, and I can assure you we're not. But because your peripheral vision is all gone, and you've got nothing other than the windows outside, even if you're looking away, the corner of your eye catches it, and you get this sensation of motion.
Yeah, I see, of lifting off the ground. Yeah.
So when that goes up, your brain kind of says to you, I've lifted up.
Yeah, we're off the ground.
And is it true? I mean, I had a friend who had a helicopter pilot's license, actually, and he said that he had to be tested every so often because of the number of hours that he had to fly in order to keep the license. And he talks about flying like backwards and flying upside down and all that kind of thing and doing a big backwards. So can you do that in the simulator as well?
Well, I don't think you want to fly upside down in a helicopter too much.
No, it would crash.
So it doesn't work too well. The Lynx can do a sort of a loop, and there's a few Red Bull helicopters that have been sorted out to be able to do that. But in general, helicopters shouldn't be turned upside down because the fan switches off, really.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Not very helpful.
And it's in your back garden, it's in your garden shed. Are your neighbours in any way aware of when you've started up your 737? I mean, does the building itself vibrate or shake or anything?
No, it's a little quieter than that. All the sound is concentrated into the cockpit itself.
Yeah.
And the cockpit has got quite a bit of insulation on, so the sound doesn't carry out.
Yeah.
If on, when I was flying from the house in the shed, usually on a Sunday evening, nobody was around and I was flying on my own, then I'd be playing AC/DC on full volume.
I see.
Just, the sound system was really cool. So the floor shook and everything like that. So playing AC/DC, with the volume right up. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it would be. I mean, that works pretty well in a car, to be honest. I'd be quite happy with that. Now, what about any new projects that you're doing as well, Kenneth? Because presumably there's always something on the horizon.
Yeah, I've got the 173, the first 73 that I built. I'm dismantling that at the moment, and I've got lots of people around the world that are looking for parts. So I'm slowly but surely sending those parts to them.
Yeah.
And I'm clearing the area because I was really lucky to get some parts from a tornado. So I've got both front and back seat of the tornado simulator.
Wow.
So, there's a lot missing, but, it's a seed that I want to kind of progress on.
Yeah.
And I actually have a motion platform that I'm thinking of putting that simulator on. So
you need a bigger garden, don't you?
Well, what happened is the business evolved and we moved the simulators to a business unit in Mildenhall. So we've got like an industrial unit that we operate out of now, but the simulators themselves are built here at the house in my shed. It's a large shed.
Sounds Yeah, sounds like a large shed. Indeed. Okay. Well, look, best of luck with all that, Kenneth. I mean, it's quite something, isn't it, to be earthbound, but to have the advantage of, what was the famous quote that President Reagan...
Sure it was him?
Yes, to fly up into the skies and touch the face of God, yeah?
Well, I don't know about that. I'm not that good.
Yeah. Have you been on EasyJet lately?
Yeah.
It's not really like that. It's not sort of a sort of eternal experience. But anyway, celestial or otherwise, thank you very much indeed. Kenneth Muckford there, flight simulator builder. I might do that because there's somebody I know who doesn't like flying very much. And I've often wondered if getting them into a simulator might actually overcome the fear of flying. Because part of the fear of flying is you don't understand precisely how the size of the craft that you are in can actually rise off the ground and stay up. Yeah. And if you're maybe more familiar with the simulation of flight, I wonder if that would overcome the anxiety.
A friend of mine just can't stand flying, but has to do it for business reasons. He has to get around. He sometimes goes to America and he has to fly around this country a bit. Right. And he just takes like Mogadon tablets or something and just knocks himself out.
You can do that. But the problem with doing that is that, when you get to the other end, it then takes you a little time to recover.
Exactly.
And if you're only going for a short haul, you're only going for a quick sort of, day trip almost.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't function properly.
True.
Which is not very good at all.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Don't give up on us, baby. We're still worth one more try. I know we put a last one by, just for a rainy evening when maybe maybe stars are few.
Yeah, I thought that song you were trying to sing earlier was the worst song I'd ever heard. I think this may be to trumping it, actually.
Without a shadow of doubt.
David Soul.
I mean, honestly,
Goodness
what happened
me.
was in the sort of the 70s, 80s or whatever, if you became a famous TV personality, the next thing was some Hollywood producer would whip you into a recording studio and say, well, you sing a song. Do you remember Telly Savalas?
Telly Savalas?
Yes.
Kojak.
Yeah. Didn't he sing one about...
He did a kind of spoken song, didn't
That's
he?
right, a spoken song, a cover version of some great song.
Like that. Was it
If a million words could paint a song, then why would
I
Don't see you?
Yeah.
So anyway, David Soul was in the massively popular Starsky and Hutch, okay?
Yes.
And these guys had that famous car with the white stripe down the side.
Yeah.
Why on earth a couple of cops would be allowed to have a car so distinctive when they were working undercover?
I was more upset by Starsky's sort of long cardigan.
Yeah, that's right,
to be honest, in the car.
Yeah.
Which was even more ridiculous.
But what was ridiculous was there's supposed to be 2 undercover cops, right, driving around, LA's bad areas and all that. But the car was so distinctive, it had a white stripe.
And also, they also had Huggy Bear in the back of it.
And Huggy Bear in the back of it. And they would unobtrusively merge into the LA lowlife, you know what I mean?
Well, they made a film of it not that long ago, didn't they? And they tried to sort of rehash it as a movie, which never quite worked.
No. But anyway, the point is that it was Hutch. David Soul?
He was, yeah.
David Soul was Hutch, right?
Starsky was Paul Michael Glazer.
Who has a very tragic history, by the way. He does, in this family. I'll tell you about in a minute. But David Soul...
Well, don't tell me too much about it, because we've got a guest waiting.
Oh, really? What to talk about?
Not to talk about this, no. But to talk about something else.
Anyway, David Soul, Starsky and Hutch, is 74 today.
Yes.
Just so I'd let you know.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll come back to that, because it's an interesting story.
Indeed.
But have a listen to this before we talk to our next guest, who is Robert Singh.
Sure.
So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. Yeah. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Now, would you believe that's Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., 54 years ago.
Yeah, on this
in
day.
1963, on this very day.
Yeah.
So I thought because of the way that the American political scene and the societal
it's so
situation
volatile
is
at the
so
moment.
volatile due to a lot of race problems again and the sort of rise of the KKK. I thought we'd talk to Robert Singh, Professor of Politics at Birkbeck University here in London, because it is a very odd time. Robert, thank you very much for joining us. Those words are always very kind of iconic to listen to.
Very moving.
When you look at what's going on in America at the moment, what does it make you think?
It's very sad, isn't it, Mike? I mean, the picture is more complex than the recent sort of Charlottesville protest suggested. There's a lot more tolerance than there was in King's Day, and all of that state-enforced segregation has gone away. Yeah. But the kind of progress that people hoped Obama would represent and getting to a kind of post-racial America, that just hasn't happened.
Hasn't happened indeed. So the poignancy of 54 years ago today, Martin Luther King, who then, of course, paid for his beliefs and his pioneer campaigning with his life. What has moved on in 54 years? To what extent has it been a tribute to his life's work?
Well, I mean, we shouldn't be too down on all of this. I mean, there are positive signs. There are a lot more black elected officials than there were. There's a kind of thriving black middle class, which is actually doing very well. And racial attitudes have changed. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily believe it by some of the footage, but America is a lot more tolerant now, particularly with the younger generation coming up. Partly because America's obviously becoming, a genuinely multiracial nation, and whites are steadily kind of becoming a smaller share of it. So there are those positive signs there, but on the downside, obviously, aside from the continuing racism that exists, black life chances, black economic achievement, it's lagging so far behind whites that it's frightening in some of the statistics, really.
Well, it is, and also the problem, I think, is you're right to say that things have changed dramatically. I mean, when Martin Luther King was making that speech, there were still segregated restaurants, there was still segregated transport,
exactly.
There were still segregated, places where black people just couldn't go. However, both Mike and I spent a lot of time in the States in the 80s. And in the early 90s as well. And I was always shocked whenever I went, south of the Mason-Dixon line to find the levels of poverty that they had there in black communities, the levels of racism that still existed in the white communities. And I think the trouble is that we've kind of assumed that that's not there anymore, but it's always been there.
Yeah, and it still is. If you go to parts of Texas now and you're in an all-white setting, the use of the N-word, unfortunately, is just common still. And if you look at net white worth, that the net white US household in the States is worth about $150,000 now. The net black household is worth $12,000.
You see, this is what I don't understand, Prof. As my colleagues just told you, we spent a long time in America in the 80s, early 90s. Now, America has had a black president. Every major city in America has had a black mayor. Black people have succeeded massively in all forms of sport. Take Muhammad Ali. Black people have succeeded massively in entertainment. Take Tamla Motown. Take, Eddie, what's his name?
Beyonce.
Beyonce, all these people. And so when they've made such, when black people have made such dramatic strides and impacts on every area of American life, why is there still such an imbalance?
I think that, there's still this long legacy of slavery and long legacy of segregation. And there's this sort of resistance, I think, particularly among the older generation of whites who are very fearful of change, basically. That, the America that they used to know is somehow slipping away, even though that doesn't have anything to do with African Americans or race as such. They're sort of projecting their own insecurities on black people, which is devastating.
But when you see the violence that we've seen, and albeit it's kind of isolated, and Charlottesville was obviously the sort of pinnacle of it, between groups of people out on the streets, with weapons, walking around, whacking each other with batons, the alt-right versus the Antifa people. I mean, it's pretty soul-destroying if you're somebody coming from, say, the 60s and the civil rights movement, to see it. It seems like it's going backwards, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, but as I say, I don't think we should think that is sort of the mainstream of America's race relations. I mean, for the most part, relations are pretty good between the races, and in a sense, one thing that's positive and that's changed from the 60s is that because there are now, so many different types of Americans around, Latinos and Asian Americans and so forth, it's no longer that sort of binary white-black opposition. And there's a growing level of tolerance among younger Americans, which I think, it's going to take a long, long time, particularly if this sort of focus on identity politics on both sides carries on. But there's a lot of good signs about changing attitudes. And if you think, for example, about, say, same-sex marriage, 10, 12 years ago, that was completely off the agenda, and it was thought it was a ridiculous thing that would never happen. So cultural attitudes can change, but it's still going to take time.
Well, we were talking earlier today about Hurricane Katrina, which unbelievably is 12 years ago. And, that was another touch point, I suppose, for people to look at as an event, to say, well, this is something that would never have happened if this particular area and these particular people were white rather than black, in terms of the way that the authorities were so slow to fix the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, in a strange way, though, part of the tension that's arisen over recent years is partly because the white working class as well, it's also suddenly got all these kind of indications of social dislocation, of this opioid epidemic. So in a way, that's actually making things worse, because they're feeling, contrary to that Katrina thing, actually the government isn't helping us either now.
Sure. How do you see it? Obviously, you're on this side of the pond, Robert. You must talk to academics over in the States. As far as the whole Trump presidency goes and the way that America appears to be realigning itself, or possibly not, according to you, where's it all going to end, do you think, at the end of this particular presidential term?
In the short term, I can't see it getting much better, to be honest, Mike, because the politics there is so racialized. If you look at the Republican Party, say, in Congress, 96% of Republican lawmakers are white Christian men.
Right.
Now, it may be the case that American politics isn't divided because of race, but it certainly is divided by race. And Trump's obviously making that worse in the short term. So, in a sense, it sort of depends on what happens to his presidency. If it goes down in flames, or if it just generates so much opposition because of the stupid things he's doing, it may actually be a sort of strange, ironic force for good, ultimately. But in the short term, things are looking pretty bleak.
Yeah. The trouble is that the worse it gets, the more violent and the more determined are those who want to oppose change.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Mike. And I think that one of the problems here is that the more entrenched the two positions get, the more perceptions on both sides become hardened.
That's right.
And so, if you're a black American, you start looking at all white, even those that actually don't have any sort of racial prejudice at all, and putting them in the same category as Trump.
Well, exactly right. And this whole argument about slavery and statues and whether they should be torn down or replaced and all of that, I mean, it's really raking up stuff which is unhealthy, I think. And although you're right to say that tolerances are much better on both sides of the argument than they were, in some ways people are much less tolerant of other people's opinions on both sides as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the danger, as I say, I think, is that the sort of identity politics thing started from groups like gay Americans and women and African Americans. But what Trump has been very sort of shrewd in a cynical way in doing is advancing that for whites as well. And all of this thing over statues is exacerbating that, because a lot of whites who couldn't care less about statues are now thinking, well, hold on a minute, we have an identity too. And this is represented by these statues. It's becoming, so politicised now over what are really stupid things in a way. Because, I mean, if you're really concerned about, basic bread and butter issues like jobs, you should be concerned more about inequality than identity.
Yeah,
I think you're absolutely right. Listen, Robert, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks,
it's the time that we're living in. Professor of Policies at Birkbeck University in London, of course. It is the anniversary, 54 years since Martin Luther King made that speech. And looking at what's going on, you might wonder whether anything has really changed. Now, a couple of things to mention. Coming up is going to be Heroes and Villains very shortly.
Yes.
A lot of people, which I haven't really had a chance to explore with you, asking me the question why you weren't wearing your normal Rolex on Sky News this morning.
Well, I'm a man of the people.
Normally you are very prominently displaying it on your left wrist.
Yes, well, I wasn't. Today I had an alternative.
Have you lost it?
No, I haven't lost it at all.
You sure?
No, of course I haven't lost it.
It's not put in for a service?
No.
It stopped working?
I just decided an alternative watch today. I'm man of the people. It's a people show, the one we do on Sky.
Oh, yeah.
For the people, of the people, and with the people.
By the people.
By the people.
Yeah, not with the people. That's not one of them.
And so I decided that was the right approach to take.
I see.
I'm not ashamed.
So which watch are you wearing today?
This is my Swatch.
A Swatch?
It's a Swatch, yes.
Really?
Yeah, but it's a very, very top of the range
It
Swatch.
doesn't look like a Swatch.
It is a Swatch.
It looks like it's a weird looking Swatch.
No.
Swatches were always sort of plasticky, bright
coloured. No, this is metal. It's a metal casing. In fact,
I can
it's
see
plutonium, I think, or something.
Plutonium?
Something like that. No, not plutonium.
I don't think you want it to be plutonium.
No.
It's glow in the dark.
What's the other one I'm talking about?
Uranium?
Uranium. No, it's not uranium.
What
What is that metal that some watches are made out of? And it's
polonium?
No, it's not polonium, you idiot. No, it's platinum. Platinum. That's the one I was looking for. Platinum.
You don't want to mistake that from uranium.
Or plutonium.
Or plutonium.
My blowing wrist off.
You go into the local Swatch shop and ask them if they got a plutonium watch.
Yeah, that's right.
I think you'll be being carted off to the local constabulary.
I think you probably would as well.
This is Talk Radio.
Yeah.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Talk Radio, we are the Two Mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on. We did announce, by the way, over the weekend that we've got a big new show coming up.
Yes.
After we go to New York in September.
Yep.
It's only a couple of weeks away now.
That's right.
We're going to do a massive show at Christmas.
Yep.
And it's been called Two Mics Christmas Party.
That's right.
At the Shepherd's Bush Empire.
Yes, it is.
Which is a very big theatre. Biggest one we've done so far.
It is.
If you want to go find out where you can get tickets, Ticketmaster have got them all.
Yep.
They go on sale to the general public at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
They certainly do.
But they're already on sale to some specially selected customers customers.
People have already started buying them. So
yeah, they have.
It's a long way off.
But have a look on our Twitter account, which is, of course, at the Two Mics, or our Facebook page, and you can see where to go.
And have we posted some info about this on our website?
I don't know, actually. It's a good question.
We're going to.
We should do that,
because they've jumped the gun in releasing these tickets, but they are there. And can I just point out to you, it is the Sunday before Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So if you're on a shopping expedition in London that weekend before Christmas...
I don't think it is actually the Sunday before Christmas Day, is it?
It's the 17th.
Yeah, the 17th.
Well, I see, yeah, it's a week Sunday. Yeah. It's a week Sunday before Christmas Day.
Because Christmas Day, technically, would be on the Monday.
It will be, yeah. It will be.
The Sunday before Christmas Day is actually the 24th.
Yes, it is, yeah. But I mean, that's far too close.
Out too much information to wrong again.
No, it's far too close.
Now everybody's going to be confused about when it is.
Look, it's the last proper shopping...
17th.
Yeah, it's the 17th.
Let's say that.
And it's the last proper shopping weekend before Christmas.
It's not.
It is.
The shopping weekend before Christmas is the 23rd and the 24th.
No, on Christmas Eve, everybody has to stay home and prepare all the food and the presents for Christmas Day. They don't go out shopping.
That's not true.
The biggest shopping day will be Sunday the 17th.
Loads of people do Christmas shopping on the Christmas Eve. That's what they do.
I used to do it as a teenager because I never got round to buying anything until Christmas Eve.
Well, exactly.
And then I'd get bladderated at lunchtime with work colleagues and then go and buy silly presents.
Loads of ridiculous presents from the late night garage.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Usual rules apply. Now, you consider yourself to be a bit of a wordsmith, don't you?
I certainly do.
Have you ever heard of a word called carrels? Carrels. Carrels.
Carols,
yes.
No, the only carols I've heard are Christmas carols.
Why are you saying that in a West Country accent?
Well,
who are you?
Poldark, innit? He sing Christmas carols.
What's that got to do with Christmas?
Anyway, go on, what is it?
You're not going to suddenly do the Christmas show in a West Country accent.
No.
Well, carrels is a word apparently which describes a cubicle desk.
Oh.
And the only reason it's of any interest to anyone, because it wouldn't be normally of any interest to me, is that the guy who is the new world Scrabble champion used that word in order to win the tournament.
No.
Apparently, it's a word which describes I suppose classroom furniture.
Yes.
So if you think of a cubicle desk.
Yes.
I guess it's a desk that fits in one cubicle. So if you go down to a furniture shop.
Sorry, is this a desk shaped like a cube?
No, I don't think so. A cubicle desk would be a desk that goes in a cubicle.
Yeah, I see. Yes.
I'm thinking.
So it's like a flat top and four legs, but it's in a cubicle.
I guess so, yeah. I guess so.
So that'd be the sort of thing you'd take an examation in there.
That's what I'm wondering about. Yes, very possibly.
Yes.
Anyway, this guy's name is David Eldar, born in Australia, but now, in fact, living in London.
Yeah.
He's 27 years old. He works as an estate agent.
Right.
But he's actually now the world Scrabble champion.
Okay.
Isn't that quite interesting?
No. Because I've never played Scrabble. I can't bear it. It's the most boring pastime and board game I've ever come across in my life.
all you want to do is go to the pub, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's played by people who think they're ever so clever for inventing words that hardly exist and are not in day-to-day use. Far more interesting to me.
I've tried to educate you over the course of the show, but it's failed miserably on every
count.
Far
more interesting to me.
Why don't you just look at the time on your plutonium watch and see whether we should be talking to our correspondent, Mr. Harry Hardy.
I think is he there?
Who is in Waterloo Station.
Excellent.
Because we've decided to dispatch Harry. Hang on, Harry. Dispatch Harry.
We haven't
don't go too early. To dispatch him, see what's going on in the world of rush hour commuting on this Bank Holiday Monday. Harry, how's Waterloo looking?
Waterloo, it's not the busiest I've ever seen Waterloo. There is quite a lot of footfall.
Is there?
Yeah, quite a bit.
A lot of footfall? Very you mean warm. There's a lot of passengers walking around, is there?
Yes, passengers walking around because their trains are delayed, it seems.
Oh, are they?
Actually, that being said, I can only see at the time being there's only a couple of trains right now on the board, on the big board here, that are delayed.
Well, how many trains?
Well, tell us which ones they are.
It's the Woking 12:17. That's still boarding at the minute, even though that's
12:17. My goodness, that's already
8 minutes delayed.
That's nearly 9 minutes late already.
Yeah, Harry, how many trains are there lined up to leave? Because I thought the great scandal of Waterloo Station in London at the moment is that 10 of the platforms are not being used anyway due to rebuilding work.
From a current vantage point, Porky, I can see 4 trains ready to leave.
Yeah, but that's disgraceful. They've got about 22 platforms at Waterloo.
But I think of the 19 platforms or so that they've got, 10 are closed.
That's right, yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what sort of people are you seeing there? Are they? Do they look like tourists? Do they look like commuters? Because most people are not working today, right?
They look like a bit of both, to be honest with you. Everyone looks fairly peeved. I can speak to someone if you'd like.
Yeah, well, tell them to get down the beer cellar, which is at the other end of the platform.
Yeah, you can give them a complete and utter guide to that place, can't you?
Yeah, have you been in there yet, Harry?
I'm going to go. I'm going to go there right now. Where is it?
Well, you need some research on passengers who've given up and retired into bladderation territory, and you'll find them in the beer cellar. Now, the other thing is, Harry, this building work, what can you see is being built? How are they going to improve the station to the annoyance and inconvenience of millions of passengers?
Honestly, at the minute, all I can see are cordons. I can see those big temporary screens they've put up. I can't hear much construction work going on.
No. Well, it's bank holiday, isn't it? So I don't think it works.
Yeah, they'll be doing it. I mean, that's the other great thing. You know, the working around the clock seems to come to a grinding halt whenever there's a bank holiday weekend.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So basically, Harry, you're reporting in from Waterloo Station to tell us nothing's happening.
Absolutely nothing at all.
That's essentially it. This is a wasted journey.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Well, that's lucky we didn't send you much further afield than Waterloo then.
Yes, that's
we
right.
should have sent him to Euston, because you know Euston's completely shut down.
Well, there wouldn't be anybody there then, would there?
Well, yeah, but there'd be people wondering why it's shut down.
I don't think there would be, actually.
Maybe you should go to Euston, Harry. Can you get to Euston inside the next 20 minutes?
I could give it a shot.
Yeah.
No, well, to be honest, he's just sending you on a wild goose chase here. I wouldn't worry about it.
I just don't want to see you again.
Let your radio debut rest at the fact that when you came on and talked to the two mics, you had absolutely nothing to report, OK? That is outstanding debutant behaviour. Well done.
Well done indeed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a
It's
guy
a pleasure.
with a great future in broadcasting with a name like Harry Hardy.
I think it's great.
You know, do you remember Johnny Diamond, the guy who works for the BBC?
Johnny Diamond.
I just loved seeing him on TV because he had a great name. Johnny Diamond in South Africa, or whatever it was.
He used to write a column in the Daily Star.
I don't think it's the same one.
No, there was
That's Dominic Diamond.
Dominic Diamond, yeah. Well,
I employed him in Scotland. I hired him at a petrol station.
Well, he walked in here once and said, "Oh, hello, I've come to start." And I said, "Start what?" He said, "I'll start working on Talk Sport." I said, "Who are you?" He said, "Dominic Diamond." I said, "Well, I don't know anything about you."
He was quite a big name in the business a while ago.
Yeah, he said, "No, I've been told I've got a new show," and somebody like above me had sort of met him in somewhere and said, "Yeah, we'll give you a show," but they hadn't bothered telling me.
Right,
he never got to air.
That sometimes happens.
That sometimes happens. Yeah.
So why did you send him away with a flea in his ear?
A flea in his ear, definitely. No, the John Diamond I'm talking about.
You're thinking of the guy that was married to Nigella Lawson.
Absolutely.
There's a bit of a theme recurring here. How much?
Yeah, I don't know.
Obsession with Nigella Lawson.
Well, I haven't. It just
that's
so
the second time you brought her up.
It just so happens the facts have come up. But John Diamond was a really nice guy. He was a very good journalist. He was a writer, and he did a lot of satirical stuff with Private Eye and all that.
He wrote a column in the Times, didn't he?
He wrote a column in the Times, and
he got throat cancer though.
I think it was esophagus and tongue.
Was it?
Yeah, honestly, because he spent his last 2 years writing his column about his deteriorating condition.
Yes.
And then he very sadly died of cancer. But the way he told about one day, I remember this so specifically, he managed to eat a slice of peach when he hadn't had any solid food for months, you know what I mean? And it was a huge victory, and he managed to swallow this slice of peach, and it was like, it was fantastic stuff. He was a terrific guy, and very sorry that he died.
Did he not give Nigella permission to go out with Charles Satcher?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
While he was incapacitated.
Yes, that's right,
so there we're going back all the way back to Damien Hirst again.
That's right, we are, yeah.
An extraordinary state
absolutely
of affairs.
Right, extraordinary state of affairs.
Who knew that she would dominate this day's proceedings?
Well, nobody knew, of course, but that's the great joy, isn't it, of switching on Talk Radio. You never know what's going to happen next.
That's true.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
That music can only mean one thing. It's time for yet another one of our little competitions. We do it every week. It's all about who's the hero of the weekend, who's the villain of the weekend. We nominate two of each.
Yep.
And then Marta, our producer, will decide which one she prefers.
That's right.
I seem to remember last week she preferred mine.
Yes.
And it's 2-1 to me.
Well,
so it's time for you to try and catch up.
Yes, okay.
Would you like to go first with one of your heroes or one of your villains? You can choose.
I will go first. I will go first with a hero, okay?
Okay, go on.
But I'm going to ask for a dispensation here to make my first hero, in fact, two people, not one.
Well, I think you can do that.
Okay, and they are, in fact, Princes William and Harry.
Oh, yeah.
Because having seen the latest Diana documentary last night, 7 days, the 7 days that followed her tragic death, which, of course, I announced to the world as the man who revealed it. Yes, well, that's documented evidence now. I felt that the way Princes William and Harry had to cope with it at such tender age and have grown up, in my view, to be a credit to their country, despite the appalling tragedy and the way that the establishment in some ways used them to, to sort of almost draw sympathy towards the royal family from the great British public, who felt that Diana had been cast out of the royal family, was quite disgraceful at times, and the way they came through it and have turned out to be so level-headed, and I think, decent young men, impressed me greatly. So it's my first hero is a duo of Princes William and Harry.
OK. All right, I'm going to go with a villain first. OK. Right? And my villain is actually a shop. It's a shop where I went yesterday, along with a couple of my children.
A shop?
A shop. It's actually a garden centre. I'm not going to name them because I don't think there's any reason to give them any publicity by naming them. However, in this garden centre, and it's pretty full because it's that kind of time of year, bank holiday weekend, people tend to go to garden centres to buy stuff for the garden.
Yes.
Because you're coming towards the end of the summer, there's a bit of clearing up to do, there's, bits of gravel to buy, maybe some grass seed, that kind of thing. I was buying this, that and the other.
Yes.
They had right in the middle of the garden centre what I thought was a very nice touch.
Right.
A few little animals,
little animals,
like a petting zoo.
Yes.
They had a couple of little baby goats.
Yes.
A couple of little baby sheep.
Yes.
And, they had a rabbit. And a very nice touch for a community-minded garden centre.
Okay.
To occupy the small children that were there.
Yes.
And so one of my sons said, "Oh, that'd be nice to go and could I go in and stroke one of those sheep?"
Yes.
And as he went to go into this place, which was kind of slightly fenced off, some can only be described as a job's worth.
Yes.
Said to me, sort of pointed at this sign. And you know what the sign said?
No.
£5.
What, to stroke? What?
To go inside this fence, to stroke a sheep or a goat or a rabbit,
terrible,
for which you would get 15 minutes,
terrible,
per child.
Absolutely shocking.
And I said, "Are you having a laugh?"
Yes.
I said, "You want me to give you £5?"
Yeah.
For somebody to go in there and stroke a lamb.
Yes.
Why would you want that? Surely you're in here promoting the place.
Yes.
And if you gave this to people for nothing, they might actually come in
Yeah.
and buy something.
Yeah, golly.
Isn't that the way you should be running the business?
Definitely.
Absolutely shocking.
Absolutely
so
shocking.
I'm saying they're villains.
They're villains.
That's my first nomination.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go for my second hero. Okay. My second hero is in fact a heroine, which is acceptable, isn't it?
Ah, of course.
Yes, and my heroine is Fiona. Who is a baby hippopotamus. Excuse me.
It's all right.
Is a baby hippopotamus born at Cincinnati Zoo.
Really? I thought you didn't like zoos.
Well, I don't, but this is why I love this little hippopotamus, okay?
Right.
Fiona the baby hippopotamus, born at Cincinnati Zoo. She is the lightest and most feeble hippopotamus ever to be born.
Feeble?
Yeah, feeble.
Right.
But for somehow she's battled through the first 3 weeks since her birth, when she was expected to die at any moment.
Really?
And is now going to survive and become a grown-up hippo.
Are you sure?
Yes, absolutely.
A grown-up hippo?
Yes, that's right.
So you're a hero for being a grown-up hippo?
Well, she's battled so bravely.
Really?
I mean, she was... Talk about premature.
Does she know Nigella Lawson?
A stupid question. She was born in January, 6 weeks premature.
Really?
Less than half the average birth weight for a hippo.
Right.
The lightest hippo ever to be born, according to zoological records around the world.
How much does she weigh then?
She's got, at birth, she only weighed 29 pounds.
Okay.
Which is amazing. It's one-third of the normal weight of a baby hippo.
Right.
But she's got through it all, and she's now a healthy young hippo, little sort of child hippo, but will grow up to be a full-term hippopotamus. And I think that one will touch the heartstrings of all of our millions of listeners.
Okay. Well, I've got a much better one than that for a hero, okay?
Right.
And this is actually somebody called Cena. That's spelt Cena. And it's actually a service dog that served 3 tours of Afghanistan with the US Marines, right?
Okay.
Hundreds of people gathered at the Michigan War Dog Memorial over the weekend for the burial of Cena because she was diagnosed with bone cancer and put down last month, accompanied by 3 volleys of rifle fire.
Yes, okay.
So that's a very brave dog.
Yeah, very brave dog.
The sort of dog that goes into a war zone and sniffs around for explosives.
Yes, okay.
But tragically, she died of bone cancer.
That's terribly
and
sad.
had to be put down. So I think that's a very, very worthy hero.
Yes, okay.
Marine service dog.
Okay,
Cena.
okay, fine. Right, now then, we're into villains, okay?
You've got to do a villain or two.
Yes, I've done a villain or two, okay. Well, my first villain, right, and, you know, I know that this is not a sports station anymore, but I'm afraid I have to nominate...
What do you mean anymore?
No.
No.
What I mean is we're not broadcasting on the sports station at ce moment, right?
At ce moment.
Nevertheless, I have to nominate Mr. Slaven Bilic, who is the manager of West Ham, who's played 3, lost 3 so far.
Yeah.
But he's not the villain here, right? The villain is actually West Ham United for being in a position to have to play the first 3 away games. The first 3 games of the season away from home.
Yes.
Now, that is a distinct disadvantage to any manager trying to give his team a sprinting start to the Premier League season, OK?
Well, that's true.
But he's played 3, lost 3. It's not Mr. Slaven Bilic's fault that he's had to try and drum up the resilience and... will and power of his team in 3 away games. It's the fault of the deal that was undertaken by people at West Ham, which has led to them not being able to use their stadium, their home, for the first 3 weeks of the season.
Really?
So I nominate West Ham as a villain.
Okay, well, that's a very, very sort of sporty type
Well,
villain,
it's not, because it's a whole community, isn't it, in East London?
I see. That's a bit of a stretch.
No.
I'm going to go with something which is sporty but not quite so sporty as a villain, and I'm going to say it's Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is a guy who managed to convince...
That was the biggest sports event of the
weekend.
Wasn't.
No, we agreed last weekend that it was not a sports event, that it was a showbiz event, actually, because it was not about a boxing match. It was about convincing lots and lots of people to part with lots and lots of money. 49-1 was the bet, and were the odds that this guy was going to beat Floyd Mayweather, who was, of course, a very, very competent a boxer who had 49 wins, now 50 wins, unbeaten. The idea that Conor McGregor convinced all of his compatriots from Ireland and many others besides that he would somehow have a chance against this guy was a nonsense. And I don't believe what people say about it being a fair fight and being a great occasion and being a fantastic spectacle. It wasn't any of those things. It was an absolute joke. It was a circus act, and it should never have happened.
Okay.
That's my second villain.
Okay. Well, my second villain, quite strangely, right, but this is very, very worthy, is in fact Professor Stephen Hawking.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
he's a villain.
Yeah, a villain, yeah.
Sure.
Professor Hawking is a very brilliant man, as we all know, and he wrote the book, didn't he, A Brief History of Time.
That's right.
That's right, yeah. Okay, one of the biggest selling books of all time.
Did it?
And he knows a lot about physics and all that kind of stuff. But I don't like people who... are on the outside, sticking their noses into politics.
What are you going to say? He's going to be on? You're going to side with Jeremy Hunt in this one. You're the only person in the entire universe who thinks that Jeremy Hunt is in the right here.
No, let me just say this: at least Jeremy Hunt is an elected politician, right?
He's a complete and utter hopeless steward of the NHS.
And when elected, was appointed as Health Secretary. Okay,
yeah, and he's doing a great job, isn't he?
So. Well, I think he's doing a fine job. Yeah. I think there are parts of the National Health Service which work. There are other parts which need improving. Yeah. But historically, the National Health Service has been all over the place for at least 25 years.
It still is.
And a lot of that is down to previous government administrations. Yeah. Call it what you will. I think it's the toughest job in politics to get it to work. And I don't think it helps with Professor Stephen Hawking, who has a great well of affection shown towards him by many members of the public, to suddenly get involved in politics. I don't like anybody in showbiz or anywhere else getting involved in politics. I think it's unnecessary because it's a false premise on which to try and present political opinion.
What about you getting involved in it then?
What?
Politics.
I don't get involved in it.
Yeah, you do.
I'm completely apolitical.
You just have.
No, I know.
You just attacked Jeremy Hunt.
I've not attacked Jeremy Hunt.
I've
defended
him.
No, Professor Stephen Hawking.
Right.
I'm not defending Jeremy Hunt. I am attacking as a villain, or I'm suggesting a bit of villainy from Professor Stephen Hawking.
Professor Stephen Hawking, one of the great brains of a generation, very, very sadly and heavily disabled man, you're saying is a villain.
Well, I think it's villainous of him to use his massive intellect to try and interfere in the political world.
But he's not. But he's also wrong, though.
Well, he's wrong, because he shouldn't get involved.
Listen, you're entitled to your opinion, but I don't think that's going to win you
No, leave that to elected politicians, thank you. Right,
okay.
What's your last one, then?
My last one, actually, is going to interest you, because you touched upon...
Really.
I know that nothing I say interests you, because it means you have to stop talking for 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
But basically, you said that you thought Princes Harry and William should be heroes, right? And Matthias has already tweeted in, Princes Willie and Harry are heroes because there was a documentary about their mother on. yawn.
No. They're ridiculous. It reminded us of their behaviour during the very difficult years as young men, as adolescents.
What I'm going to say is actually their mother, Princess Diana, should be considered to be the heroine of this particular week because it is the anniversary of her death. It happened many, many years ago. But watching all the events that happened all those years ago on Thursday will be the actual anniversary. It brings back so many memories for people who were there, who witnessed it, even for those people who didn't know her, including my children. They're watching it with interest because she was somebody that changed the world. Yes. She was somebody that changed the culture of the way people thought about things in the world.
But she is dead, of course.
She is, but she did
it for 20 years because I announced her death, actually.
Well, you say that, but it's not all about you. So the point is that I would say that Diana is somebody who should be remembered this week because after this week, I think that should probably be the end of it, and then we can go forward and we can decide what we think about Princes William and Harry.
You think so?
So my second hero of the weekend is Princess Diana.
Yes, okay.
And so that is heroes and villains. Two of each.
And the verdict will follow shortly.
The verdict will follow from Marta very soon. Yes. This is Talk Radio.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
This is Talk Radio. We are the Two Mics. Tommy Boyd's going to be in a little while before he takes over at 1 o'clock.
That's
Pete
right.
says this: the hippo did it for me. Easy victory for MG in Heroes and Villains.
The hippo did it for a lot of people, and I will be declared the winner, I'm sure. When is the verdict coming in?
Well, Marta's going to have a considered view of it, and then she's going to tell us when she's ready
Nothing
to tell
to
us.
consider.
But I'll tell you what I've found out since we've just done that whole thing on hippos.
Yes.
You were raving on about this hippo that's been born, the smallest hippo in the entire world ever.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
I've just found 10 things you never knew about hippos, and guess what?
Yeah.
There isn't anything such as that piece of information in my information.
Well,
so
that's because it's so recent.
Well, no, I don't think so.
No, it's so recent.
This is right up to date, right?
Yeah.
10 facts about hippos, right? I bet you didn't know any of these, okay? Question number 6. An average male hippo weighs 3,300 pounds.
Yeah, that's right.
You said that hippo was 29 pounds.
That's right.
Of
At
all
birth.
land
See
mammals,
how small it was?
do you know which two land mammals are bigger than a hippo? Only 2.
Elephant.
Elephant, yes.
And
what is the next one?
Bigger than a hippo?
Bigger than a hippo.
The rhino.
Very good.
Thank you.
So you got those two correct.
Yes.
In Africa, despite being
I've seen them all, by the way. In the Kruger, I saw hippo, rhino, elephant, giraffe, and cheetah.
What about lions?
Lion.
You saw a lion?
Are there any lions in
of course there are.
You sure?
The lions are in Africa.
There's no lions in Africa.
What do you mean there's no lions in
Hang
Africa?
on, there's no lions in
rubbish.
the Kruger. No, there
How can
can't
there be
be.
no lions in Africa? It's where they live.
No, wait a minute. Well, why don't they attack people then?
Well, for the same reason they don't attack other animals.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, it must be somewhere, but they're not in the Kruger
Well,
Park.
how about this?
Okay.
In Africa, right? Guess which animal kills more humans than any other mammal?
Would it be the elephant?
No, it's a hippo.
A hippo?
I'm giving you facts about hippos.
Oh, okay.
That's why the answer to all of the questions is a hippo.
Hippos spend 85% of their living time immersed in water with just their head up.
What?
They stand in rivers. They stand
keeps them cool, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Israel's reported to be the world's largest exporter of hippos to zoos. Did you know that?
What?
Israel.
Yeah. Well, does Israel breed hippopotamus?
Well, they must do. I don't know. Apparently they are bred outside Tel Aviv and carried in crates after being sedated and lifted with bulldozers.
How cruel is that?
That's awful, isn't it?
Dreadful. I didn't know the Israelis. I've been to Israel a few times. Never seen the hippo farm.
Do you know where the word hippopotamus comes from?
It's Roman.
Incorrect. No, it's ancient Greek.
Ancient Greek.
Well, it comes from 2 words meaning river horse.
River horse. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Sense,
hey, river horse.
Not the Lone Ranger.
Bring
we're
me
talking
my
about.
river horse. Tell you what, if the Lone Ranger was riding the river horse and the Comanches were chasing him, I know who'd win that one.
Well, so do I.
Those Cherokee are after me.
Now, how about this one? In the English Bible, hippopotamuses, it says, should that not be hippopotami?
Well, I would always say hippopotami.
Are not mentioned, but in French, behold Behemoth, Job 40:15, is translated as voici la hippopotami. Meaning
here is the hippopotamus. Yes, that's right.
So the French have obviously got the edge on the hippopotamus
voici. Yeah, excellent.
Who's the true la hippopotamus?
Bring me the hippo.
Now, are you ready for the verdict from Marta?
Yes, please.
Marta, would you care to tell us precisely who has won Heroes and Villains?
Got to say, it's been a tricky one today.
Tricky, yeah.
I don't think it was tricky.
Should have tried putting it together.
Yeah, but, we had a hippopotamus versus a service dog.
Yeah.
And then Conor McGregor and Stephen Hawking.
Yeah.
I've consulted with our studio manager, Mark.
Okay. Yes.
There's been consensus.
Yes. Okay.
I can announce that this week's winner of Heroes and Villains is Mr. Mike Graham.
Thank you.
Oh, rubbish. A load of dribble.
See, I always win this one.
Load of dribble.
You know the ones you win are the ones that get put out to popular vote.
That's
because you always galvanise the Porky tribe.
That's a
so when it actually
rubbish,
goes down to some intelligent people behind the glass. So that makes it 3-1 to me.
Yeah,
right?
It?
3-1 to me. Yeah, it was 2-1 before. Yeah. It's now 3-1.
Yeah. That's what you say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe it.
It's true.
Right.
What do you mean, right?
Well, do you know what's on telly tonight? You won't believe it.
No.
Do you know what's on telly?
What?
I've just seen it, 9 o'clock tonight.
Yes.
The Theory of Everything.
What, with Stephen Hawking?
Yeah.
Really?
The premiere biopic of Stephen Hawking exploring the renowned astrophysicist's romance with future wife Jane during their time at university in the 1960s and his initial diagnosis with motor neurone disease, which doctors believe would lead to his death within 2 years.
It's a great film, actually. Have you seen it?
No.
You should watch it.
Undaunted by deteriorating health, he continued his groundbreaking research into the origins of the universe. It stars Eddie Redmayne.
Yeah, it's a very good film. I would highly recommend it, actually.
Yeah,
because it also gives you an insight into why Stephen Hawking is such a cool guy.
Right.
Because he's not, at the start of the film, obviously, a guy who has any kind of disability.
No.
Because his motor neuron disease hasn't sort of, affected him too much.
Yeah.
So I think that's always interesting, because I think when you see somebody like Stephen Hawking, it's hard to imagine him being sort of, without the wheelchair or without, the special voice box and all that. But in this film, that's how it starts out.
Yeah.
That he starts out, as if he was like you and I.
Eddie Redmayne, actually, is not unlike him facially, is he? He has a sort of...
I suppose you might say that.
Certainly, maybe when he was a younger man, he may not have looked that different to him now.
Phil's got this. He says, no lions in Africa. Is Porky on the early blood ration already?
Sorry. No, I realise that was a stupid thing to say. But I never saw a lion in the Kruger National Park.
Uh-huh.
And I was driving around it for 3 days.
Right.
I mean, not...
Well, you could be unlucky,
for somewhere to go.
Well, you could be unlucky. It's a bit like whale watching. I mean, when we went out on the boat in Greece, right? Which was lovely, and there was obviously no suggestion that we'd see whales. But the guy, the captain of the boat, said sometimes they see dolphins.
Okay,
and we didn't see any.
Didn't see any, no.
And the kids were a little bit disappointed. But I said, well, sometimes it's hit and miss, and I presume it's the same in a national park. You can't just drive in and go, this is where the lions are.
No, but the most impressive animal for me was the giraffe because they lope along. They don't actually walk or run. They bounce, if you see what I mean, on their 4 huge legs.
Although they can move quite swiftly.
Yeah, they can. Yeah. And seeing...
But the thing about giraffes is, right, I wouldn't feel particularly amazed to see them because you can see them in Regent's Park.
Well, yes, you can, but you can see elephants in zoos as well. And
but you can see them
in their natural environment.
No, but the thing about giraffes is you can drive on the outer circle. And
I see, and see their heads.
And see them because they're so big that you don't actually have to go into the enclosure.
No, I see what you mean, yeah.
And it almost looks, because their heads are above the sort of the tree line.
Yes.
It almost looks like they're in the wild.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I know that sounds ridiculous.
No, I know what you mean.
You know what I mean?
To see a family of elephants as well with their trunks wrapped around the tail of the elephant in front and all that.
Oh, yeah.
Is extremely impressive. And particularly as one of the rangers there that I saw, he said that he understands elephants perfectly and they are easily... never mind apes and chimpanzees and all that. They are, orangutans. They are easily the animal most like the emotions of human beings.
Yeah.
Their feelings for their children.
They mate for life as well, don't they?
They mate for life. Their feelings for their children. Their desire to help other elephants in distress. If an elephant goes down, all the elephants surround him.
Yeah.
Stop predators from getting at him and all that kind of stuff.
And we've seen footage of elephants rescuing baby elephants from water holes.
That's
and that
right.
Kind of
and all that kind of stuff. And he said they're the most remarkable animal. You know, and
pachyderms.
Yes, that's right. And he'd been researching it for 10 years. And he was an expert in elephant behaviour and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we are.
So that was all pretty incredible stuff.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
Now, how about this from David, who's a bit confused about the Two Mikes Christmas party? He says, I'm confused. He says, when is the show? Is it Christmas Eve? Is it the weekend before? Is it the Sunday after?
That's because you bamboozled everybody with science.
What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, it's on the 17th of December, which is a Sunday night.
Yeah.
A week and morning before Christmas Day, okay? Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Gary says, I've always wanted one of those uranium watches. Where can I get one, please?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Well, before you do, you better have an injection.
Try Belarus.
Because it won't do you any good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.